dialogues. We have also succeeded in submitting the resolution to the Indian government, and I'm hopeful today's forum on Kashmir, the way forward, will be more productive and stays within its time frame. I don't know what time we have today. We
We'll try
again,
to wrap it in 90 minutes, right?
yes, we again have lined up great speakers and like-minded people. I would like our Ibadat Khana chairman, Tasawwur Jalili, to introduce the speakers. And yes, again, before that, let me remind you the core principle of Ibadat Khana is to foster peaceful, just, and inclusive society free from fear and violence. Our guiding principle is based on a conviction that democracy is the best known form of government to promote peace and prosperity, and the state should be governed by rule of law. Welcome all once again. Mr. Chairman, all yours.
Thank you, Ritu. I think before I start, I'd like probably our General Secretary, Naren Singh, to speak few words, and then I can start introducing the guest speakers.
Okay.
Well, Tasawwur, I'll be delighted to. So first of all, I like to welcome all our guest speakers. It's great to see you. And I wanted to just, thank you, Ritu, for sharing our, core values and mission. We are a non-political forum, global forum. And since our inception in December last year, we have become a global movement, which represents really bringing people from different perspectives, uh, different different ages, different religions, all together to have a meaningful dialogue on the problem we are facing in Indian subcontinent. And as Ritu said, it's so heartwarming to see in our last two seminars on Kashmir Way Forward, the kind of progress we have made. I think we have really created heart-to-heart connection between these two communities, which have been um, separated by mistrust, historical injustices, and all that. So it's a really wonderful. I just wanted to kind of share some of the progress we have made. Despite of this pandemic, we have been very active forum. We have conducted a webinar on variety of topics. We talked about the state of judiciary in India. We talked about the economic situation in Indian subcontinent. And then we have spent substantial discussion on Kashmir forward. So I'm very excited about the momentum which we have created on Kashmir way forward. I understand it is a very difficult problem, historical problem, and we're not here to solve it politically. I'm sure there are many other forums which will do that. I'm very interested in from the human perspective of this and see how we can bring these two communities together and how you as a leader, how you're going to contribute to really make sure that not only we can bring them together, but really we can make them forward. So again, I'm very delighted to have you all and look forward to a very, open, candid, but same time, a very dignified conversation here. Thank you, Tasawwur.
Thank you, Naren. Thank you, Ritu. Good evening, everyone in India and outside India. And good morning, everyone. There might be a little confusion this morning because of the daylight savings time. So we may not have all the participants, but we're already at pretty large participation this morning. So what we're going to do today or tonight, we do have wonderful list of speakers, and I'm going to introduce them. The format would be will allow all the guest speakers to speak 3 to 5 minutes on Kashmir, the way forward. We know we had in the previous discussions talked about the past, which is also important, right? We can't ignore past. It's important we do speak past, and but how that past and what we have learned from that past, which will help us drive our future decisions towards Kashmir. Like I said, I will introduce most of the panels. Um, Ritu and Athar will help me with Q&A. But in the beginning, right now, what we're going to do is get started with Justice Kaju. He is the patron of the organization. Uh, Justice Kaju does not need any introduction. He's an Indian jurist, the former Supreme Court judge of India, who has served as also the chairman of Press Council of India. He is currently the chairman of also Indian Unification Association, an organization that advocates for the peaceful reunification of Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India under a secular government. With that, I will hand it over to Justice Kaju to give us a little intro and his views how we should move forward. Justice Kaju, would you please enlighten us?
Good evening, everybody in India. Good morning, everybody in America. In the previous webinars of Ibadat Khana and Chinar Foundation, I had expressed my views and I had proposed 4 resolutions which were adopted by Ibadat Khana and Chinar Foundation, which were handed over by Mr. Vivek Tankha, Member of Parliament, who is also chairman of Chinar Foundation, to the Indian Prime Minister and Indian Home Minister. These 4 were that democracy should be restored to Jammu and Kashmir, the economy of J&K should be restored, the status should be restored, and the Kashmiri pandits should be given compensation in their properties. So I've already expressed my views. I would not like to repeat that, but I would like to say I was reading a book called India's Independence, India's Struggle for Independence, which is in my hand right now. And in this, it is mentioned something very important, which I should tell you. In the year 1908, in June, some revolutionaries in Bengal threw bombs on some British officials and killed them. This was in Bengal. Now, the great freedom fighter Bal Gangadhar Tilak lived in Bombay, and he used to publish a newspaper called Kesari, in which he wrote an article after this bombing in Bengal that while he condemns this violence, he also is of the opinion that this is inevitable if you deprive people of their freedom and the right to dissent. And that is what I said, that if you don't restore democracy and the economy and status to Kashmir, you are going to drive Kashmiri youth towards militancy. And that is what is happening. I'm seeing every second day on the internet, I'm seeing some incidents happening. I'll just read 1 or 2 sentences which Bal Gangadhar Tilak, the great freedom fighter, wrote. He writes, if the government suppresses criticism and dissent, then violence, however deplorable, becomes inevitable. He further writes, when the official class begins to overawe the people without any reason, and when an endeavor is made to produce despondency among the people by unduly frightening them, then the sound of the bomb is spontaneously produced to impart to the authorities the knowledge that the people have reached a limit to their tolerance of this policy of repression. Now, a little lower down on the same page on the book, it is mentioned that before his arrest on 24 June 1908, for writing this article. Tilak was told by some friends of his that, look, you're going to be arrested for writing this article. And he laughed and said, the government has converted the entire nation into a prison, and we are all prisoners. Going to jail only means that from a big cell, we will be sent to a smaller one. So from a small cell in which Farooq Abdullah, Umar Abdullah, Mehbooba Mufti and others were confined, they have been released, but they have been sent into a bigger jail. The whole J&K is a jail. When you have deprived people of the right of freedom of speech, freedom of media, 4G internet, freely elected legislatures, the whole of the J&K is a prison. So from a small cell, these political leaders have been sent into a bigger cell, that is the whole of J&K. So this is the short-sighted policy which our leaders of the Indian government are pursuing, which is going to drive people towards militancy and violence. And I'm sorry to say that I see a very bleak future in the coming times for J&K. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Katju. Actually, a very enlightening quote. First time I'm hearing Bal Gangadhar Tilak has said that. I'd like a copy of that. So we have a great audience, panelists, speakers this morning, this evening. Being respectful of everyone's time, I would not waste any more time. And before I intro the the speakers, just wanted to kind of mention one thing, that we are all, I think, on all the panelists, speakers here today come from a very educated background, very enlightened, very exposed, very accomplished in their fields. So I would request that we be respectful of each other's. And, you know, I should quote Voltaire's quote. He once said, I may disapprove of what you say, but I'll defend to death your right to say that. So, you know, we may not respect or agree other person's opinions, but we must definitely respect everyone's right to speak their mind. We are in a democracy. And a lockdown in Indian Kashmir, Indian administered Kashmir, right? A part of that. And there is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and then there's China occupied. I think we're not going into that, you know, all these terminologies. Is dispute, there is whatever there is. Today we're talking about peace and bringing Kashmiri people together, right? Which is Kashmiri pandits and Kashmiri Muslims. You know, the lockdown in Kashmir has cost its economy more than $2.4 billion since government stripped of its special status. Now, Ibadat Khana does not advocate for 370 or against 370. We are a non-political organization, but we have opinions and views here today from different groups. But you have to understand, it is the common person, whether it's a Kashmiri, whether it's a Hindu, it's a Muslim, it's anyone, it's a common human being who is suffering. And we should really keep that in mind, right? That should be the core spirit of humanity. With that, we have very important, great speakers, great accomplished speakers. We're joined today with Mr. Kapil, who is Air Vice Marshal. I'll introduce him. And then Dr. Surrinder Kaul, Mr. Jeevan Zutshi, Mr. Muzaffar Shah, and Dr. Vijay Sazwal. With that, I would like to kind of set the stage, and we'll go in that order which I just stated. I would probably like to start with Mr. Kapil, but just kind of a little quick intro. Mr. Kak is a retired officer of Indian Air Force who rose to the ranks of Air Vice Marshal. He was the deputy director at the Center of Air Power Studies in India. He was awarded the Vishisht Seva Medal in 1981. Air Vice Marshal Kapil Kak is one of the many petitioners who have moved to Supreme Court challenging the J&K reorganization bill and the abrogation of Article 370. With that, Mr. Kak, I welcome you to the session. I would like to hear, I think people are very eager to hear your views. how should we move forward in the current situation, given the crisis in Kashmir, where you have visited Kashmir many times? It's the stage is yours, Mr. Khan.
Thank you very much, Tasawwur Saab. May I first of all take this opportunity to convey my grateful thanks to Justice Markandey Katju and Tasawwur Jalali Saab and others at Ibadat Khana to have me here to say a few words. Basically, perspectives which are uh, objectivized in terms of what Rituji just outlined as the raison d'etre of Ibadat Khana, and what Mantuji just a while before talked about very high chances of militancy coming back in the context of the quote from Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So I'm sure I have freedom to express my views very frankly, and I'm quite willing to be bopped on the head, as the Americans say, during the question answer session. I'll try my best to explain the details of what I have to say. I don't want to go into the international setting. I think Tasawwur Saab put it across pretty well that let's concentrate on peace. How do we bring about peace? And then with that peace, the togetherness between the two communities, which have lived in glorious harmony and togetherness for centuries before the militancy started in 1990. And my community, the Kashmiri pandits, witnessed that horrible, terrible geo cultural mosaic being torn asunder, and they having nearly 300,000 of them having to leave their homes. Uh, when I talk about Kashmir today, whatever is the larger context or framework within which we are discussing and conversing this morning or this evening, I'm afraid they go against the fundamentals of Ibadat Khana's raison d'etre. Because everything that you strive for, what is attempted to be done, is counter to it. So the challenge for Ibadat Khana is far more to keep these dialogues going. And as much as we can do with whether it's Vivek Tankha, other friends, or print media, or talks elsewhere, project the ideas which are brought in here to the outside world all over. In the recent past, following the 370 abrogation or nullification, we have witnessed some more of these, starting with the domicile law, then the setting up or establishment of the district development centers, which is completely a new situation in Kashmir, primarily aimed at marginalizing the mainstream political leadership. The last straw on the camel's back was just a couple of days back the introduction of new land laws, which in any case allow everybody to come to Kashmir. Now, this has gone to the deepest inner core of, uh, of the grief, the despair, the despondency uh, in the Kashmiri community in the valley, most of whom are from the majority community, but there are at least 7, 8,000, 9,000 Kashmiri Pandits who continue to live there, who never left the valley. So what it does to that, and that the principle of coexistence that was outlined before has been work in progress. I've seen it in each of those homes which I have visited. I'm talking about the Kashmiri Pandit homes. And they face no problems, notwithstanding the propaganda that is unleashed that they are unsafe and they are targeted. There are one or two places where they have been moved. But the worrisome part is this land law, uh, which in many ways is exacerbating the problems that have been in the minds of the people ever since the nullification of Article 370 took place. Kashmiris are benumbed. They are not able to react. They are living in a sense of fear. I'm giving you the ultimate truth as a result of What Tasawwur Saab said, I go occasionally. No, Tasawwur Saab, I go there 10 times a year. It's just that in the pandemic, I can't move out of the house. I haven't made those visits. There have been even more frequent visits than 10 times a year. So one gives you a perspective of ground zero, not Srinagar, but South Kashmir, every village, every tehsil, every block, every district. So this is the sum total of this. Now this will obviously, this has been followed also by the NIA raids. Use of agencies, state agencies, both investigative and otherwise, to browbeat dissent. And this was what obliquely was referred to by Mantuji earlier. This is nothing but, I mean, the most credible people there who are renowned world over have been raided, and we will get no results. It's just that we will all be told they have been raided, and the allegation is they have used funding, charity funding, for secessionist activities. Let me name those credible people. Parvez, first and foremost, Khurram Parvez, who has been leading Jammu and Kashmir Coalition for Civil Society. Parveena Angar, who is the chair of the parents of the uh, people who have disappeared. There are thousands of them, and everyone has heard of them. There is a Greater Kashmir Trust, which actually runs the largest selling English daily in Kashmir, Greater Kashmir, as also Urdu paper Uzma. There is a journalist
Sorry, Dr. Sazwal, Dr. Kapil, sorry, Mr. Ka, can you unmute yourself? I had to mute everyone because somebody unmuted themselves. Yes, sorry about that.
No, no, not at all. Now, the other point, just 2, 3 minutes, I won't take more than that. We have a situation where a very well respected Justice A.P. Shah has had to comment in the context of what has been happening recently that India is on the way to becoming an elected autocracy. And I tend to agree because the circumstances on the ground seem to match with that. We need to remove this poisonous impulse from our body politic if we are to move forward to what has been outlined as the objectives of Ibadat Khana and what has been said about this necessity and imperative for peace. We also see that Jammu and Ladakh, despite their endorsement of abrogation of Article 370, are now openly coming out with ideas for giving them some kind of lands and jobs. The Land Act is such that that we have had at least half a dozen statements made by, I normally don't take names, but the Prime Minister of India and the Home Minister of India, half a dozen of them. This is after the Article 370 abrogation, that lands and jobs will be protected. Regrettably, what has been done in the recent past is exactly the opposite of that. Lands are not protected, jobs are not protected. Same thing is now causing concern in Jammu and in Ladakh. Ladakh is talking of sixth schedule under tribal, 10 tribal districts in the northeast are having those special provisions where no land can be acquired there, and Ladakh is seeking that status. Jammu proper may still be in, that means the districts of Kathua, Samba. I'm sorry, I want to give you these details because if we keep it too general, we need to understand the granulates of what shapes the larger public opinion. Otherwise, we will be traversing largely the upper crust of what is known as the general comment in a situation. So Ladakh, I mean, Chenab Valley and Punch and Rajouri are very much with the Kashmiri sentiment. We also have Punch and Rajouri, exactly the same situation. So when we look at the heartening developments, that is, I think Muzaffar will probably address it in more detail. He's a member of the Alliance, People's Alliance for Gupkar Declaration. What is Gupkar Declaration for? When you talk about way forward, the Kashmiris say unanimously that before you take me to way forward, can I go way backward? and which is relevant. Take me back to 4th of August 2019. Give me back my rights, constitutional rights, which have been actually stolen from me because the Supreme Court has not yet given a judgment. And the government is proceeding hammer and tongs with every step of the consequential steps that need to be taken post 370 abrogation. Now, when we make the changes which happen over the next 10 years, who knows Supreme Court? We have a former judge of the Supreme Court here with us, with due deference to Mantuji. Who knows the Supreme Court may take 10 years for this. 10 years, Kashmir would have been transformed. And who knows them? You may actually be right, Mantuji. You may be seeing much more violent forms exhibited in Kashmir. But I want to mention that Gupkar Declaration is a way forward because it's talking about the rights being given back to Jammu Kashmir, unity of all mainstream parties, which were the majority. If you put them all together, they were majority in the elected assembly, which was resolved in June 2018. This is your majority viewpoint for the Valley's way forward. I want to end with two, three quick points. One is, apart from the general points which have been outlined in our earlier discussion, may I suggest some specific points? Point one is that dialogue is the way forward, and that dialogue has to be multi level, it has to be multi track. To begin with, the government of India, and it's my firm recommendation number one, the government of India must initiate a dialogue and talks with the Alliance for Gupkar Declaration, because they are the mainstream parties, they are pro-India parties, they form governments in coalition with the central parties, and they, to my mind, to my understanding, represent the reality in the valley. No matter how much we delude ourselves that there are other forces which are as important, they are all dynasts and they have all sold themselves, sold the valley, which is completely untrue. This happens to the rest of India too. There are dynasts sitting in Tamil Nadu. There are dynasts sitting in Maharashtra. There are dynasts sitting elsewhere in India, in Orissa. Where are no, which tell me which state doesn't have dynasts? So therefore, these are the elements. Secondly, immediate restoration of statehood. I would personally recommend restoration of 370, but that would not find traction in the center. Restoration of Article 370, that can be negotiated. What form can be the new relationship between the state of Jammu and Kashmir when the restoration of full statehood happen, and the center. My third is that political prisoners. Now, this is what was referred to earlier by Justice Katju. There are hundreds of them still behind bars. We've only released the most prominent ones whose names are taken by international agencies and international governments, that please release these political leaders. They don't know the second round of political leaders, which are hundreds of them, and they have no cases against them except cases of dissent, cases of protest. Third, restoration of 4G. Now, this is a human right. The 4G is not a convenience. You can't function in the world today. Thanks to 4G, we are able to converse today. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to do this. We have to roll back the new media policy which has been outlined, which seeks to, in many ways, disenfranchise the journalists from being able to write the pieces that they want to, file the stories they want to, because the police stations of the cyber wing call them to the station at odd hours and explain what is the source and what is the basis of that story. Nowhere are you doing this in the world of journalism anywhere in the globe, except that small territory of 75 and 50 miles square in the valley. So that has to be undone. I do believe that the central government has to desist from employing coercive apparatus of the enforcement directorate and the investigative agencies. If there are genuine grounds to be investigated if the most severe punishment is required to be accorded to the people who have violated law, please go ahead and do it. And I don't think anyone on this panel this evening or this morning is in disagreement with that. But what has happened over the last 15 years, these cases are initiated, in many ways the people are targeted, they are harassed. At the end of 5 years, 10 years, the cases get forgotten, so the person is virtually traumatized for life. I don't think that's a fair one for a powerful democracy. I'm a proud Indian. I have the greatest pride in our plural and democratic culture, but I think these would tend to detract from that. For my Kashmiri brethren, my message is, of course, we have to live together as two communities, but we have to continue with the patience and wisdom and no violent protests, which has been a characteristic of Kashmir from 5th of August 2019. This is something we have to jointly appreciate at Ibadat Khana. This is not out of fear, because this is out of a deliberate policy that lives must not be lost. And as the Gupkar Declaration rightly says, we will fight for Article 370 restoration, restoration of constitutional rights, and we will do it politically, legally, democratically, and peacefully. I think this is a great quality which the Kashmiri brethren of mine have shown. But I would resist, I would request some of the leadership. I had to personally intervene at the highest levels of some of these leaders, not to use expressions like China will give, we will seek help from China to give us, or to use the precise words, hope China is able to use its power to restore Article 370 for us. That is not an appropriate response to come from a Kashmiri leader, because it raises the hackles not only in Jammu and in Ladakh. And as a peace builder, I see it happens all over India. So that's why I had to intervene and with folded hands request my friends at the top apex level leadership of the mainstream in Kashmir to desist from these expressions, because they are doing us more harm than they are doing us good. So with these words, I'd like to thank the Bhagat Khana for giving me this opportunity to share a few words. It's been a hurried kind of through the horizon, but I think perhaps in the question answer session, I may be able to handle this better. But I would perhaps conclude with my last comment, and I'm prepared to explain it in greater detail if the need arises. Uh, the government in power today in India has done zilch. I repeat, zilch for the Kashmiri Pandits. The only people who have done anything for Kashmiri Pandits, only government, was the UPA 2, who managed a tranche of two sets of jobs of 3,000 each, which I'm glad to report to you has been completed. We have 4,000 members of the Kashmiri Pandit community who are now employed in the valley after their departure in the 90s. This will probably go up to 6,000 by perhaps the middle of next year. There's a third tranche which takes these jobs to 9,000. Why talk about small things like jobs, seemingly small things like jobs? Because livelihoods and living spaces are connected. If you give an individual a livelihood, living space is not a problem, he'll find it. But this is, I think, a very futuristic issue. One point on which the current government has been of help to Kashmiri Pandits is in increasing their relief grant for unemployed Kashmiri Pandits all over India from a sum of 9,000 or 8,000 rupees a month to 13,000 a month. That is an appreciable gesture, and I want to put it on record lest I be accused of having not spoken facts. So, as we see, no substantial action by the current government for 6 years, but the previous government has done substantial issues in at least ensuring that the number of Kashmiri Pandits in the valley has risen from 3,500, who are the ones who never left, to approximately 9 to 10,000 today, which is an appreciable move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kak. I think everyone should know there are several guests who joined later. Mr. Kak is a retired Indian Air Force officer who has served the highest ranks and been awarded the Vijay Seva Medal in India. So, with a very honorable person, and we are very delighted to have you, Mr. Kak, today. I think this is the first time you've spoken, and your views have been recorded. We will publish them later. But Mr. Kak is in the opinion of going back to pre August 5th change, and we will continue the discussion. Ritu Jha has a question for Mr. Kak. Ritu, you want to just go ahead?
So my question is, I understand, yeah, Mr. Kak, you have raised and touched very important points and perspective. But going forward, because we are very much focused how to bring the Kashmiri Muslims and Pandits together. So, what is your view that one thing you would do personally to improve the relationships? I think everything starts from here, from the core value. What you think should be done for that? Because irrespective of what government is doing, has been doing, or planning to do, the core issue is how to bring both the communities together, what we can do, and what are your thoughts on that?
Mr. Kak, you're muted. So, sorry, can you unmute yourself?
My apologies.
Yep, now we can hear you.
Rituji, it's a very, very crucial, very important question for both Kashmiri communities. In fact, I don't see myself as two separate communities. I see myself as a Kashmiri, and I've treated myself as a Kashmiri from the time I was 5 years old. I'll explain the details later. As far as your question is concerned, first, before you talk about bringing them together, we need to ask ourselves, reflect very thoughtfully, how did we go apart? Now, that is where I have gone on record, I have no hesitation in saying, and this has been endorsed by many very, very senior members of my Kashmiri brethren from the other community, that clawing out Kashmiri Pandits from their geocultural moorings of millennia, thousands of years, and putting them into hot temperatures in 100 odd locations all over India was one of the, I think, the most brutal steps that could have happened. There is a fault from many sides. Why did the governor let them get out? If they could be in camps, for example, in Jammu, why couldn't they be in camps in Badami Bagh, in the cantonment? There are hundreds and hundreds of acres of land there. If tented camps could be set up in Jammu, why not in Kashmir? So why did they go out from their shrines, the flavors of the fruit, the fragrance of the flowers, the visits of the beauty of their shrines and their temples? They went away, and I think the blame also lies with our majority community that they didn't prevent it. I was speaking at a panel discussion in Harvard University last year, and the other panelist was Umar Abdullah. And Umar Abdullah himself said that the fault lies with my community that we let Kashmiri Pandits get out. The other two public figures who have said it in open public, as also in writing, is late Shujat Bukhari, the editor-in-chief of Kashmir, Rising Kashmir, and Gauhar Gilani, a very, very prominent journalist. So there is mea culpa done by the other community too. The fault with my community, I think so. I don't justify it because I didn't go through the pain. I was a serving one-star general of the Air Force when that happened. but knowing them, the pain and the terrible torture they went through in that process was also a separator. You talked about getting together. I have been involved with at least 20 get togethers between Kashmiri Pandits and Kashmiri Muslims, 20 of them, maybe more, in Kashmir over the last 2 decades, where we get together not electronically like we are getting together here, but in a hotel, uh, 40, 50, 60 people from both communities. It's a sort of a, it's a sort of a catharsis of experiences actually panning out through that famous Kashmiri Nalmuttu at the end. Those links have been established. There are people who are visiting each other between Jammu and Srinagar. The Kashmiris who have lived in Kashmir have no problem of togetherness. They are there together all the time, 24 by 7. So the ways forward to answer your question about what can we do is exactly that. Small camps. I mean, if we can organize funding, we can organize in amongst the Kashmiri Pandits who are there to organize camps, Nishat outing, Shalimar outing. It can start in the spring. 50, 60 members of each side. These are not expensive propositions. You just like we are sharing our experiences, we are sharing our thoughts. You actually share these to recreate that ambience of mutual trust, mutual love. We are not, Kashmiris don't talk in terms of tolerance. When you look at Sufism and Shaivism, layers upon it of both of these seen, witnessed, developing over centuries, what did we evolve? It's pure love for each other. It is not being tolerant. Being tolerant is a very petty expression. Loving each other, feeling for each other. And that has been the characteristic, to my mind, in Kashmir, where I was born and where I studied before I joined the flying branch of the Air Force.
Thank you, Mr. Kak. I really appreciate your views. You really have a very strong understanding of the grand facts. We have it to be again to be respectful of everyone's time. I would like to keep it today to 90 minutes. We have several speakers, and we also have a lot of participants who would like to ask questions. I have Mr. Vijay Dar, who has raised his hand, has a question for Mr. Kak. But Mr. Dar, if you please don't mind waiting, because we'd like to continue. We'd like to probably get another speaker, and then I'll let you back in the panel to ask question to Mr. Kak. So I hope that's okay.
It's okay.
So with that, I would like to introduce our new speaker today. He did participate in the past, he was listening in. I'd like to introduce Dr. Surrinder Kaul. He is a medical doctor based in US. Dr. Kaul is a physician leader and a founding member of Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora, a civil society movement of Kashmiri Pandits all around the globe. Dr. Kaul has been international coordinator of GKPD and has served as the president of Kashmiri's Overseas Association. I believe Dr. Surrinder Kaul also participated or was a key person in organizing Howdy Modi last year. So with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Kaul. Dr. Kaul, please, you are online. You are muted, Kaul sir. No, we can't hear you still. I think there are some audio issues.
It's muted.
No, he is not muted. Let me see. Unmute.
Is he there? Because there's no picture.
Oh, he's here. Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Now we
Yeah.
can hear you. There you go.
Okay, that's good. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yes. We can hear you now.
Okay, I think my volume. Can you do me a favor? Can you bring in the next speaker on the line so that I can adjust? I will not use my headphones and go directly.
Okay.
But
okay.
you can introduce your next speaker if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
I don't want to waste your time.
All right. No, thank you. Again, thanks a lot. We want to be respectful of times. If you can keep 3 to 5 minutes, I would really, really appreciate. That way, we allow in time for Q&A. With that, I'll bring in our next speaker, Mr. Zutshi. Let me introduce Mr. Zutshi. Of course, besides being a good friend, lives here in California. Mr. Zutshi is a founding member of California chapter of Kashmiri Overseas Association, and founding member of Indo-American Kashmiri Forum and global organizer of People of Indian Origin in Silicon Valley, and also part of Indian American Friendship Council. Mr. Zutshi has led 2 delegations to Jammu camp in the years 1994 and 1996 to visit Kashmiri refugee camps after 350,000 Kashmiri pandits had to flee from their homes. Meetings are held with the Prime Minister and several ministers, including relief commissioners, to address complaints by camp dwellers in Jammu and increase their allowance. Several children in the camps were also adopted by Dr. Krishna when he was a member of the council. With that, Mr. Zutshi, I'll hand it over to you. You're muted. You may unmute yourself and express your views. Since you have been heavily involved in the resettlement of Kashmiri Pandits and trying to bring in back peace and tolerance and love among Kashmiri Pandits and Muslims. With that, I hand it over to you, Mr. Zutshi.
Thank you once again for this opportunity to be able to speak to all of you. It's very enlightening to hear eminent speakers already. And I thank you, Ibadat Khana, for making this as one of the first overseas forums which has gathered some stakeholders together. I'm glad that I was able to request few Kashmiri Pandit voices to join this forum, but we need many others, like Jammuites, Buddhists, and those who call the state of Jammu and Kashmir their home. Before I discuss moving forward, I think I'm compelled to bring up some impediments, major impediments, which continue to distract us from further development. And I'll just take a few minutes. We must have talked about it in the past, but I would like to just bring it up again. At the time of partition, the new nation state of Pakistan claimed that Kashmir was an unfinished task of division. Pakistan was a place created for Muslims. The founder of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, described Kashmir as an unfinished task of division. But to take it further, by proclaiming 1,000-year war with India. If this was not enough, General Zia-ul Haq doctrine of 1,000 cuts to bleed India fostered and nurtured separatism, terrorism, and fundamentalism, thus making Kashmir what it is today. Consequently, Pakistan became a player by supporting this deep-seated separatist agitation with finance, training, and allegedly boots on the ground. The beautiful valley of Kashmir became a bed of Islamic terrorism, and the campaign of intimidation and harassment worsened in the late 80s with growing influence of the straight-laced interpretation of Islam propagated through Wahhabism. To completely Islamize Kashmir, Pakistan was able to capitalize on this by financing, arming, and training militant groups across the border. And ethnic cleansing of the Kashmiri Pandits was undertaken. Many secular Muslims and intellectuals who did not become part of this were also killed. Regarding independence movement, some Kashmiris say that Kashmir was always independent. I was going through some literature and I was very delighted to hear our Justice Katju very correctly narrating that this is historically incorrect. Kashmir was only independent till 1587, when the last independent ruler, Yusuf Shah Chak, was deposed and exiled by Mughal Emperor Akbar, who incorporated Kashmir into the Mughal Empire. Later, it passed under Afghan, Sikh, and Dogra rule, and ultimately came under the British. Maharaja Hari Singh was only nominally independent, but like other princely states in India, the real ruler of Kashmir was the British, who had their army there. Regarding Article 370, it's rooted in the contested politics of partition. It's a different matter that this so-called sacrosanct article turned out to be a failure in serving the interests of the state's residents. Instead, it became a symbol of psychological and emotional separateness. Eventually, over a period of time, because of misuse, it was made to become a weapon of grievances. A reference to Article 370 as a precondition to instrument of accession is a hype. Similarly, whatever provisions Maharaja had before instrument of accession was signed became null and void. Instrument of accession was signed on 26th October 1947, and the process of Article 370 started in 1949, and then was formally incorporated and was adopted in 1956. Moving forward, removal of these articles should help curtail terrorism in the valley and empower women, as more progressive laws will apply to them equally with the rest of the country. It should provide equal opportunities to all and a chance for the development of regions like Ladakh. I truly hope that both direct and indirect sponsorship of terror from Pakistani soil stops. If the shadow of terror is lifted, the Indian government would not need to deploy a huge armed force in Kashmir. This would eliminate potential excesses from the Indian side that affect ordinary civilians. I am particularly sensitive to the plight of Kashmiri Pandit refugees who were driven away from their homeland in an act of genocide by Pakistan-sponsored terror groups in 1989-1990. Moving forward, I truly hope that their genocide is recognized and the refugees will be able to go back to their home state and start a new chapter in their lives. I also hope that all Kashmiris, including the majority Muslim community in Jammu and Kashmir, and the minority Hindus, Sikhs, and Buddhists fully enjoy the fruits of development. It's evident that the ordinary Muslim majority in the valley of Kashmir have started recognizing that the rulers in the past in Kashmir have bungled up. They recognize that the poor segment of the society wants to get stability, security, and employment, especially when unemployment rates are very high among the urban population. Moving forward, we ask citizens to create harmony and live within confines of law. As I said in our first meeting in August, we must promote pluralism in the state so that all communities can live together as they did before Pakistani trained militants created mayhem and forced Kashmiri Pandits to leave Kashmir Valley. The simple and most important message that flows from this step is to foster peace and development, as also to marginalize those who promote division and bolster a culture of rebellion. It must be admitted that there's no surety that after coming under central control, Jammu and Kashmir will perform better economically instantly. It will take time, but the opening up of the local economy of Jammu and Kashmir to outside actors will be akin to India's liberalization movement of 1991, when it opened up its economy and integrated with the outside world. Since the legal impediments to the free movement of people and access to assets like land have been removed, the economic focus of the state can now be broadened beyond tourism and agriculture. Industrialization can slowly expand its prominence in the local economy, and the elimination of the spatial status and more centrality of governance should beget higher availability of economic opportunities and wider avenues of growth for the people of Kashmir who have been long denied the same. Last but not the least, all of us must strive to bring different communities together and defeat the enemies who created this mayhem to begin with. I Once again, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Zutshi. I think really appreciate. I think one thing we have been lacking is trying to stay on time, and you really managed it. Thank you again. You enlightened with our views. Recorded, we'll post them. We see your views a little opposite to Mr. Koch. Yes, Mr. Dar, you can ask a question, but please ask a question, not a statement. And Mr. Koch, if you can keep it within a minute and answer so that we can have next speaker. So,
Yeah,
Mr.
it's a quick thing I wanted to point out. And now actually I've heard both Mr. Zutshi as well as Air Marshal Koch. So I found that the two narratives are very clearly different in not recognizing, in one side, not recognizing elephant in the room, and the other side, talking about the elephant in the room all the time. So if we don't have a recognition of this elephant in the room, which is Pakistan, which created the mayhem, which created the division, and really made Hindus to leave. I want to ask Kak Saab, why is it that his statement blamed Kashmiri Muslims for this, blamed Kashmiri Hindus for that, blamed BJP for this, blamed others for everything else. He even blamed the Gupkar parties for bringing in China, but nobody talks about, he does not talk about Pakistan even in one breath. There is a fundamental root cause analysis that has to be done. I've been in the Bay Area for 25 years, 26 years, solving problems, technical problems, human problems. And if you don't do the root cause analysis and recognize that root cause there, you will never be able to go forward. You'll never be able to find a way forward. So, Air Marshal Koch, please tell me, what is it that is preventing you from recognizing the elephant in the room?
Mr. Koch, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
No, I think the time that was allotted was 5 to 7 minutes. Yes, I concede the point that Mr. Vijay Dar has made. I should have made a reference to Pakistan. Without doubt, I have had the, what shall I say, the experience to undertake bombing missions in Pakistan in 2 wars. So I do know a little bit about Pakistan. At 100 feet off the ground, or dark nights at 500 miles per hour, 200 miles inside. That's some experience. But I would think, and I'm prepared to explain this in a more coherent manner. The primary problem in Kashmir and the center relations has been that in the context of accession, followed by incorporation of Article 370. Incidentally, Jeevanji, Article 370 was not incorporated in 1956. It was incorporated in the Constitution in October 1949 and entered into force with our Constitution on 26th of January 1950. So that 2-year period between accession and incorporation of the Article 370 was utilized to precisely draw up a constitutional bond of the relationship between an independent state of Jammu and Kashmir, as it was on 26th of October 1947, and the independent state of India. This is pure legal language. There's no constitutional constraint in it. And I may mention to you, Jeevanji, that there were 4 members who were nominated by Maharaja Hari Singh from the state of Jammu and Kashmir, who would sit in the Constituent Assembly of India as members and ensure that the relationship is drawn into the Constitution. The members were Sheikh Abdullah, Mirza Afzal Beg, Maulana Masoodi, and Motilal Bogra from Jammu. So there was an elaborate process. It was nothing sudden was done. But I thought I will digress from Vijay Dar Saab's question because these facts need to be put on the table. We may have a disagreement. This is a very civilized setting for very civilized people. As to Vijay Saab's question, Pakistan started this process. Firstly, Pakistan's raison d'etre is anti-India. It is born on the spirit of anti-India. That is its raison d'etre. It has no, if somebody was asked in Pakistan, let's have good relations with India and become very close to each other, the answer given was, why do you want good relations? We left India just not to have good relations and live as an independent country. So the mindset of Pakistan is known. But the problem, as I use the expression used both by Jeevanji as also by Vijay Saab, root cause. Root cause was the arrest of Sheikh Abdullah on 9th of August 1953. Why? Second root cause was 1953 onwards, for 2 decades, puppetizations of regimes. Second was uh, widespread rigging of election, not one election. I'm not giving you this, I'm sure you know it, I'm only reminding you. Third was corruption as an adhesive to bond the Kashmiri society, and you all must have been very young people at that point of time, to bond the Kashmiri society vertically and horizontally, which means that the lowest layer was corruption and it went up to the highest layer. And with this, the fourth element was complete choking of democracy, which you had elsewhere in India. So this is the center Kashmiri conversation and the turn it took. This is where Pakistan got an opportunity. And that opportunity came to Pakistan in 1979 after the Islamic Revolution, the fears in Saudi Arabia that the monarchy was now up for grabs. You recall the attack on Makkah was made around that time. And that is the time when Wahhabi Islam came in full force in Kashmir. And that was the primary kind of a fodder for the creation of what you both have termed a sentiment of separatism and everything else, in which Pakistan then used terror as a weapon, which it has used in 47, 48, used in 65. I was in the 65 war. It has used it in 1971, and from approximately 1989 onwards until today, the instrument of terror is the primary foreign and security policy framework within which Pakistan targets not only India, but most importantly, Kashmiris, which Kashmiris have now realized over many years. But there are some elements of Kashmir, which were always lean towards Pakistan. And it is these elements which have been progressively leveraged by the Pakistani establishment, which is the ISI and the Pakistan Army, to target security forces in Kashmir and keep Kashmir on the boiling point at a certain temperature, where between India's reaction and Pakistan's success to keep the pot boiling. I think on that there is no doubt. If I left out Pakistan, it was not because I deliberately didn't want to talk about it. It was just because in the narrative that I was being unfolded on peace, I missed that out, and I'm sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Kak. I would again reiterate. I know I would love to hear you. I really enjoy your views, Airwise Marshal Mishkak, but we want to keep it very to the point, the respect of everyone's time. We are getting close to over an hour. With that, I will request our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Kaul, if you are back, and before I
Yes.
get over to Mr. Shah. But let's please keep it within 3 to 5 minutes, and then that will allow us people to ask questions like Mr. Dar had for Mishkak, and then you can elaborate your views.
Yes. Am I audible now?
Yes, you're very audible.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much, Ibadat Khana and Tasawwur Saab, for organizing these dialogues. These are very important. Dialogues are the basic essence of civility and conflict resolution. And I'm very glad that I come from a tenets of mutual coexistence respect for all, tolerance, knowledge, and truthfulness. And I'm very sure that my foundation principles as a Kashmiri Pandit and the tenets of Kashmiri Pandits are similar as the tenets of Ibadat Khana. That's very, on that note, I also feel glad to be amongst the luminaries like Air Vice Marshal Kapil Sahab, Justice Katju Sahab, Jeevan Zutshi Sahab, Dr. Sazwal Sahab, and Muzaffar Shah Sahab, who are the luminary speakers in this panel. Uh, I want to say that, I'm not here as an individual. Once I received an invite a couple of days ago from Ibadat Khana to be the speaker. Since I'm part of the global Kashmiri Pandit diaspora, which is the largest civil society movement of Kashmiri Pandits all around the globe, including India, I informed them in real time that, hey, this is the thing. What do you say? Are you comfortable with me being the speaker there? And everyone was very glad. He said that as per our tenets of engagement and solution finding, yes, go ahead. And as a part of the global diaspora, as a part of conflict resolution, just share that what are our ways of moving forwards that I will be discussing in a short while. And I believe that with all sensitivity it deserves, I will receive, because a lot of those members are also hearing this event in real time. I will start with certain things. I know Kak Sahab made certain references, Jeevan ji made certain references. I'm a physician. I believe in healing. At the same time, I believe in diagnosis for the correct treatment. Now we have 70 years of governance in front of us in Jammu and Kashmir state, erstwhile state, now the Union Territory. I think these are the pretty, this is the platform where we should dissect about what has gone wrong, so that if we are really wanting a solution to the problem, I'm pretty sure things will come out of it. First of all, clearing certain doubts, because instrument of accession was brought in and Article 370 was discussed elaborately. Wanted to clear certain doubts. As we all know, that instrument of accession was signed by all 565 princely states of then British India. And the document of instrument of accession was same for all the princely states. So when we hear that there was some precondition for Jammu and Kashmir to accede to India, that is not true. So this was pretty much the same document that all the princely states have signed. It is true that Article 370 was incorporated into the Indian Constitution. And we have seen what this Article 370 has created. Now 70 years is a huge time to see whether it succeeded. Did it deliver the results it was intended to? And that is where we need to discuss certain things. Spatial status, like Article 370, the purpose of that is to improve the status of your residents, irrespective of your faith, belief, solve the problems, let all the people grow. But in these 70 years, what came out was a hegemony, a Kashmiri hegemony that was creating divisions within the regions of the state, like Jammu, like Ladakh. Now, this Article 370 became the instrument of misogyny. It became an instrument for pedophilia. It became instrument of committing crimes without having any accountability. And perhaps this Article 370 led to the biggest genocide and ethnic cleansing in the independent country, in the independent India. Now, similarly, 35A, again, the same things were applicable to that. And what happened with Article 370, it created this flourish this industry of terrorism. We have seen now that how far this industry was connected and who are the people who were driving it, who were responsible for it. I say it with full confidence that even Article 370 within Muslims, it was discriminatory, leaving aside Kashmiri Hindus and Dogras or Ladakhis. These are some self-introspection that we need to do, however hard we may try to defend. The governance of Jammu and Kashmir had reached to a place of no return. And as a corrective step, the first human right, I believe, is the right to live. As it has been documented that around 40,000 people died in this mayhem, which may be higher numbers, I'm pretty sure about that. We had two options, either to continue this mayhem and let another 500,000 people die, or take some corrective steps. Right of life is very important. And when so many stakeholders, proxies, Pakistan, China, internal disruptions and political elite playing their games, the residents of Kashmir belonging to any faith, they were cheated. Double standards of speech from the elite politicians, something in Delhi, something in Jammu, something in Kashmir, again added fuel to this fire. As Kapil Saab has very rightly pointed out, the recent utterances of Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah, provocations, all along provocations, Muslim, Hindu, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. Now, Article 370 trampled the rights of the people. Definitely, they were broken promises. We see that Valmiki Samaj, how the erstwhile government of J&K promised them that you come to our state, we'll give you all the benefits and treat you at par with the resident, giving you all the residency options. We have seen what happened to them in 70 years. We have seen that how the fundamental rights of the people of the West Pakistan refugees were trampled. Now, is this the way that we have to boast of this governance and defend it? No. Everything, 70 years history mapped out in front of us, it was an utter failure. It was the article which created animosity within people. Yes, the elite, their connections, they benefited with that. The lot of industries flourished under this whole thing. I would like to submit one more thing in addition to all the flaws. You know, I was recently studying the CAG's report on the funding of Jammu and Kashmir state from 2000 to 2016. And I quote that Jammu and Kashmir population was just 1% of the national population. And they were receiving funding to the tune of 10% for being the special status. And you will be amazed to know that people of J&K, Government of India has spent 97,000 rupees as compared to a larger state in India, that is Uttar Pradesh, where every resident was getting 4,000 rupees. Now you see the amount of, the disproportionate amount that India was spending just to see that this state people thrive. Where did that money go? What infrastructure did we see? What industrializations did we see? What happened with the employment? What happened with education? What happened to the access to the health? We say that yes, Jammu and Kashmir has the metrics which is better than Gujarat. And if Jammu and Kashmir metrics was better than Gujarat, why do we need a special status then somebody else who is impoverished state, they need this special category to bring them to the power of J&K when we say that it's much better than any of the developed states in India. Now, having said all these things, I don't want to take much time, but I want to briefly take this opportunity to brief all the luminaries that from global Kashmiri Pandit diaspora, we had built a consensus document wherein all mainstream organizations had vetted it. Now, what is that? First of all, we recognize that a genocide and ethnic cleansing happened. And this is as per the definition of United Nations Genocide Convention. There has to be recognition. There has to be a commission of inquiry as to why these deaths happen. Not only about Kashmiri Hindus, also people died of so many terrorists, killed so many people of Muslims, so many people Sikhs. So we have to look into it, because if we don't take corrective steps, we will be underdiagnosing it, and this will go the same route. Number two, we are a minuscule community. Our identity is Shaivism, mutual coexistence. These are the tenets, and these tenets needs to be saved. And we are at the verge of extinction. And we want our Kashmiri brethren to be sensitive towards these things. And what we ask is that we want a one-place settlement with all Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, but one-place settlement till we get the confidence of that everything is go, so that our way of life is allowed without any threats or without any refoulement. Then these are the basic two things that we are looking forward. We want every section, Kashmiri Muslims, to prosper. We want them to be able receive good health care, have access to good education, have access to good infrastructure, have access to good employment. We want them to flourish. We want all sections of the state to flourish, whether it is Dogras, whether it's Valmikis, whether it is people of West Pakistan refugees. And sooner we realize this, there has to be certain lines which are reproducible, which we are able to define and move ahead. But if we are under the shackles which allow hegemony of one community over the other, then it doesn't mean, if we have to go back to that medieval times, I don't think it's a way forward, but it's a way backward. I will stop my note here, because I know there are other luminary speakers, and I don't want to waste that time. Thank you so much again for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Kaul. Appreciate you trying to keep it brief. We hear your views. Again, I guess we have a very diverse group of people and speakers. Just keep it to the time. I'll probably request the next speaker so that we can leave it for Q&A. I know Mr. Maldar, he has a question. Sir, if you can wait till we have another next guest speaker wrap up, and we'll let you ask your question. With that, I want to bring Mr. Shah again and do a quick introduction. Mr. Muzaffar Shah is a Senior Vice President of Awami National Conference, which I think was split from original National Conference. He also happens to be a son of former Chief Minister of Kashmir, G.M. Shah, and of course the grandson of the first Chief Minister, or rather Prime Minister of Kashmir, Sheikh Abdullah. Mr. Shah is very active in politics. He is also the key signatory on the Gupkar Declaration. He's a very vocal and ferocious supporter of, getting back to pre-August 5th decision, along with Air Vice Marshal Kak. They were the same opinion. Mr. Shah, we set the stage for you. So we have Dr. Kaul, Mr. Zutshi. They did express their views. Would like to for you to respond to their thoughts, their opinions, and their views of moving forward. If you can unmute yourself, and the stage is yours, Mr.
Thank you, Jalali Saab, and thank you, Katju Saab, and all the speakers that spoke before me, Kapil ji, Zutshi Saab, and our new speaker here today, Dr. Kaul. Heard them all with rapt attention. And I'm just praying for the day when we could be sitting face to face and talking Kashmir. That would be something. And let's hope it's pretty soon, and maybe through Ibadat Khana or through Chinar Foundation. I'd be very, very happy to do that, because there is so much of still misinformation that is floating around in the world on Kashmir. A lot of misinformation. A lot of misinformation on 370, 35A, a lot of information on corruption, filling up of coffers. While my friend Dr. Kaul was speaking, I saw a lot of messages coming on the screen. But these are all hearsay. Maybe some of them are true. I can't say that everything is 100% right or wrong. But mostly, I would say 90% above is just talk in the air, nothing else, when you come to reality. First of all, because of being I'll try to sum it up because of shortage of time and others to speak. Being one of the key signatories of this People's Alliance of Gupkar Declaration, I've just come from the trip to Kargil. We just finished it day before yesterday. And we finished it after the new laws are coming in for, Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, land on sale. So it is not only my land. It is your land, Kaul Saab. It is your land, Zutshi Saab, Kak Saab. Anybody else there, I can see, Muju Saab. It's the land for Jammu, the Dogras, the Ladakhis. Well, one thing, very clear-cut message that is going to the BJP leadership, which is hell-bent upon destroying Jammu Kashmir, and in the process, I hope not destroying the entire country. One thing very clear, you may pass whatever laws you want. And you may also mention in those that there will be no jurisdiction of the courts. Very strange. Tell me anywhere in the country, there are so many states which are governed by Article 371, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right from Assam to Mizoram to Arunachal and Sikkim and which not. Can you do such things there? No, you cannot. Without going into the rhetorics of that, you just cannot. So what has happened in Kashmir, what is now happening in Jammu? Well, you will have the next speaker, he'll tell you. And I'll tell you something about Jammu. I'll tell you something now, what yesterday has happened. The women folk are now on the roads, challenging the Prime Minister. And very politely but very firmly asking, who the hell are you to pass on such orders on my land? This land first belongs to us, then to anybody else. And when I say us, it means to every Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Kashmiri Pandit, Ladakhi Bodh, the people from the Gujars, the Bakarwals. So what we unanimously are saying today, even from Leh, that not 1 inch of land will be given. You have to ask me first whether I want to give my land or not, irrespective of my region, religion, caste, or color. That's one part, very, very clear. Second part, which is getting now the call is getting very, very clear. 35A was an area where laws which were done on the recommendations of the Dogra elite, the Rajputs, and our Kashmiri Pandit brethren. for safety of their jobs, for education, and safety of their land and properties. Kashmiri Muslim had nothing to do with it. And we say today now, whatever is happening in the country, articles like 370 and 35A should be adopted by every state in this country if you really want a federal structure of the union. And my dear friends, you're very sadly mistaken when you say 370 has anything to do with terrorism. It has nothing to do with terrorism. Absolutely nothing. I wouldn't be able to do justice on a 5-minute or a 7-minute talk here on Ibadat Khana website. I mean, on the Zoom. That's why I said, I wish we can, and I hope and I pray that we will sit as brothers and talk across the table and remove the misgivings. Maybe I have some misgivings that will be removed. But I'm sure on 370, 35A, on the constitutional proprieties of the Jammu and Kashmir state, I will remove your misgivings. I'm very sure about that. Without going into details on that. I wouldn't like to go on details on that. You know, when you talk about, my dear brother talked about Valmikis, talked about West Park refugees. It is very clearly told to them, you can do what you want in Jammu and Kashmir, but you will never get the status of a state subject, period. Whether you are a Hindu, whether you are a Muslim, you are a Sikh, you are a Bodh, Christian, anybody. West Pakistani refugees, yes, I know we have a problem. I faced it in governments. I faced it, we have seen it as growing children in Sher Kashmir's government. In other governments, in my own father's government, I have seen this. And at that time, being the president of the State Central Labor Union, controlling almost 500,000 workforce, I know exactly what happened. I know exactly what the problem was because it was a labor issue. I was in charge of that. We have problems, but we have issues. And I today, one point which I really liked from Mr. Kaul, Surrinder Kaul. God bless you for putting this up. I will be the first one to say yes, an immediate inquiry commission on what you call the genocide or the removal of Kashmiri Pandit brethren from Kashmir. Let the truth come out. While we were under house arrest with my mother, we published a paper and I have sent it to the Prime Minister, to the entire political leadership of the country. And I will be very glad to share it with Ibadat Khana and to you all. Please read it. What actually happened in those times. Those are eyewitnesses. Signed by, also signed by 23 eminent Kashmiri Pandit brothers. I'll be very glad to send it to you. And we are one here on that. Let's have an immediate commission of inquiry, and it should be time bound. It should not take years and years and years. No. It should be done time bound. We are here for that. Closing on that, I would say that the relation between the Union of India and Jammu and Kashmir is based on a legal document, on a guarantee an ironclad guarantee given to every citizen of the state. Please don't mix 370 with a Kashmiri Muslim, or 370 with an elite, or 35A with a Kashmiri Muslim or an elite. No, it is for everybody. And that ironclad guarantee was unconstitutionally broken. The Constitution was raped on 5th August 2019 by the BJP government. I have no hesitation in saying that loudly. And today now, with these land laws and all, the entire state, I hope, is not up again in flames. Let's hope good sense prevails on all of us and all sides. And one of the speakers did make a reference that we have ensured till date, in spite of people saying that, hey, hello, nobody is bothered about here on this matter and nobody came out on the streets, nobody is facing bullets. No, sir. We have put our foot down so firmly on that. And I'm very, very proud of my people, very, very proud everywhere in the state, in all the 3 regions, that no blood was lost. Otherwise, there could have been mayhem if wanted. So, not taking much of your time, sir, I would only sum up here what Kapil Katju also said. He talked about the agencies, use of agencies. Please come to Srinagar and see what's happening. Please come to see how the media is gagged. Please tell your friends in the BJP that this is not the way to deal with humans. If everything was right, we don't need 900,000 forces on the ground. Why? And one of our esteemed speakers talked about the economic condition of the state. Well, don't turn Jammu and Kashmir into Chandni Chowk. Please don't do that. Don't do that. It won't help us. And even on 5th of August 2019, when millions of people were walking back home after this, not after exactly on 2019, more than 600,000 people who were being given jobs here in Jammu and Kashmir, in the Kashmir Valley, they were asked to leave within 48 hours. I saw it with my own eyes. They lost jobs. They lost 500,000 jobs. Kashmir was providing 500,000 jobs, my dear friend. Please. And when you talk about these indices, like Dr. Kaul also pointed out, or my dear Jeevan Zutshi Saab, and thank God for this Ibadat Khana. Jeevan Zutshi Saab and me are now going to be Facebook friends. I like it so much. I'm so happy. We can have our disagreement, doesn't matter, but we are brothers at the end of the day. We are from the same soil. We have the same blood running in our veins. When we sit down and talk, I'm telling you, most of the misinformation will go away. Unfortunately, we believed in these misinformations and we put our home on fire. And today it is now on sale. I'm telling Narendra Modi on his face. This is the worst that you could do, but I'm sure not a single inch of land will be given to you. Be sure about it. And 370, whether he is the Prime Minister or he is not the Prime Minister, will be back with honor and dignity for every citizen of Jammu and Kashmir, be it a Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Baudh, Isai, Kashmiri Pandit, or whosoever. So God bless you, sir. I will not take much time. I'll stop here only. And because I can see lots of these comments coming in. When you talk that this economy was swindled by only some few people, some families, of which I'm also one of the very proud members. I tell all these people who are doing this, and some of them are from the BJP IT cell. Come to our homes. I invite you. Come and see how we live. Come and see what we have got. You will be ashamed of putting such slogans on the Facebook. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Shah Saab. Again, wonderful rebuttal. We have kind of a balanced conversation going on, rather a dialogue. And again, I think like you pointed out, these efforts have led to Kashmiri Muslims and Pandits finally start talking and having a very meaningful
Yes, I'm going
dialogue.
to be friends with Surrinder Kaul and also with Jeevan Zutshi and all other speakers, including Mr. Dar. Why not? They're our own people. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really great beginning. I think if we make even that little bit of a dent in creating and breaking the ice and having a dialogue start, like what you stated, having those old day conversations, back sitting, some of the guest speakers suggested go back into this Nishat conversations and Shalimar conversations, have these friendly conversations, and start that process, the healing process.
Sorry for interrupting. I would say, Tasawwur ji, I would, with respect to Justice Katju, sir, please have one dialogue face-to-face somewhere. India, abroad, London, United States, Nepal, wherever. And let's sit down and hash it out.
That's certainly a very good suggestion.
After all that, we are the principal sufferers of the dispute.
That's
of the Kashmir dispute. Nobody else. Not India, not Pakistan. Let me tell you that. Let them know about it. We are the basic party of this dispute and basic sufferers. And they better talk to us on Kashmir before they proceed further. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahzab. As you rightly pointed out, we have obviously heated debates and heated discussions, and we have own ideas on the discussion panel is more than Act 2 today. We have few questions. We have Mr. Mahaldar, he's been raised his hands for a while, and Shafalika Ban Kotwal, she has also raised her hand. She wants to ask questions, but Mr. Mahaldar has been there first. I request Mr. Mahaldar to unmute himself and ask your question. Mr. Mahaldar, go ahead. Okay, while you're fixing the volume, I'll give it to the next participant, Shafalika Ban. She has also raised her hand. Shafalika,
can you hear me?
Yourself. Okay, yes.
Sorry, sorry, is Mr. Mahaldar speaking now?
Okay, yeah, let Mr. Mahaldar speak. He got his mic muted.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Mahaldar, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. Ibadat Khan, I'm very much thankful to you that you have putting up so much of efforts bringing the two communities together. And I could see some of the prominent people within the community here. I'm very surprised the people how they are here talking to the Kashmiri Muslims, because for them talking to the Muslims means a fringe elements. But somehow you are putting up the efforts. That's very nice. Second, I'm basically my refugee. My people are in the past 30 years who are living in the rented accommodation, who are really having a pain. They can't pay the money. They are just surviving on the relief. Some even don't have that. None of these prominent organizations come forward to bring a relief to them. And they are claiming to be the leaders. The same people are talking about here about the reconciliation. The same people are time and again releasing the statements about one place settlement, having a separate land. The people who want to go back to the Kashmir, they call him as a fringe elements. They call them as a Muslims. They call them a terrorist. आप इबादत खाना बना रहे हैं. आप ये देखिए कि आप कंसेप्ट क्या है आपका. यहाँ पर कह रहे हैं कि भाई मुजफ्फर साहब ने कहा कि हम सारे मिलके यहाँ पर आएंगे मिलेंगे. अरे मुसलमान हमारे यहाँ पर शादियों में तो हर दिन ही होते हैं. Individually we love everybody, but when it comes to the public domain, we accuse them everybody. अरे किसी को नहीं जाना है, वन प्लेस सेटलमेंट बनाना है, आपने बनाइए, बट जिसको कश्मीर जाना है, जिसने अपने मंदिर में जाना है, जिसने अपनी पूजा करनी है, तो उसको आप क्यों दिकारते हो? ये कौन सा तरीका है? आई एग्री विद यू कि भाई इनजस्टिस हुआ है, हमको उसको फाइट करना चाहिए। साहब आप अमेरिका से आइए ना, यहाँ पर करिए कोर्ट में केस, क्यों नहीं करते हो कोर्ट में केस 30 साल से? यहाँ पर इतने सारे एफआईआर हुए हैं, आज तक 30 साल से एफआईआर क्यों नहीं हो रहे? जम्मू में क्यों नहीं हुए? दिल्ली में क्यों नहीं हुए? आप डिक्टेट कर रहे हो। मेरे जगती के जो लोग मर रहे हैं यहाँ पर, मेरे किराएदार जो मर रहे हैं लोग यहाँ पर, बच्चों के बस खाने के लिए पैसा नहीं है, रहने के लिए पैसा नहीं है, आप वहां से आके कोई लंदन से, कोई अमेरिका, कोई बांग्लादेश से, कोई कहीं से वहां से ज्ञान दे रहा है। हमें क्या चाहिए आपका? आइए ना, उनके लिए लड़िए ना। आप देखिए उनके घर में जो दुख दर्द की प्रॉब्लम है, उनके घरों में क्यों नहीं जाते हो? भारत की बात करते हैं हम, भारत की बात करते हैं। मैं आज घर जाना चाहता हूं। इंडिया ने आज CA/NRC लाया। जो नेबरिंग कंट्रीज में हिंदूज हैं वो रह रहे हैं, बड़ी अच्छी बात है। माननीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने, भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने लाया। तो भाई मैं भी तो 30 साल से घर का रिफ्यूजी हूं, मेरे को तो बसाओ, क्यों नहीं बसा रहे हो? आपने इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए 4.5 लाख कनाल जमीन, स्पेसिफिकली अबाउट 3000 एकर्स की लैंड आपने उनको लिए अलोकेट की। ये क्या? यू कैन नॉट अलोकेट 300 एकर्स ऑफ लैंड टू रिहेबिलिटेट कश्मीरी पंडित्स? What kind of conversation we are having? We are talking about something rosy figures. The basic things तो हम उसकी बात ही नहीं कर रहे हैं। रिकंसिलेशन किस चीज की रिकंसिलेशन? आप बेसिक की बात तो करो ना। किसी पर मेरे कश्मीरी पंडित ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने किसने बात करी, या मुस्लिम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने ये बात करी कि भाई द CA/NRC तो आया है, भाई कश्मीरी पंडित जो मूल निवासी हैं, मैं आई एम टॉकिंग इंक्लूडिंग कंप्लेंट टू मुजफ्फर साहब, टू ऑल पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, किसी ने आज तक ये बात कही कि भाई जो हमारे मूल निवासी हमारे भाई हैं, अब भाई उनको भी तो बसाओ। आप सब कॉफी पीजिए, मुजफ्फर साहब आप सबके साथ पीजिए, मेरे भाई भी हैं, सबके साथ पीजिए, बट ये तो बताइए एट लार्ज एज ए कम्युनिटी की बात तो करो। दिस इज नॉट ड्यूअल फेस, हिपोक्रेसी इज नॉट एक्सेप्टेड। आप करो तो चमत्कार, दूसरा करे तो बलात्कार, इट्स नॉट एक्सेप्टेड। आप प्लीज आप बेसिक्स को देख लीजिए। आप इतना बढ़िया काम कर रहे हैं, बट जो है इट्स ऑल गेटिंग रोजी। ग्राउंड लेवल पे हमारी बातें नहीं हो रही है, एंड देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ हिपोक्रेसी। वी टॉक समथिंग इन द बेडरूम एंड वी टॉक समथिंग इन द पब्लिक। मैं यहाँ पर मूल निवासी होने के वास्ते मैं आपसे ये कह रहा हूँ, प्लीज वी हैव टू लुक। अगर हम वाकई में काम करना चाहते हैं, मैं मानता हूँ कि हमारी कश्मीरी पंडित कौम के साथ वर्चुअली जेनोसाइड हुआ है, हमको आगे पढ़ना पड़ेगा ना। तो अब हम लेटर हेड लेके बयान देके उससे कुछ नहीं होगा ना। लेट्स कम फॉरवर्ड, फाइल ए केस इन द सुप्रीम कोर्ट, फाइल ए केस इन द कोर्ट, लेट अस विजिट prominently the पार्लियामेंट and get into it। बट आपने ये रट रखी है, नहीं जी तब तक किसी कश्मीरी पंडित जो जाएगा मुसलमान से बात करेगा वो तो मिलिटेंट बन गया। ये कौन सा तरीका है?
Thank you, Maldar. Mr. Maldar, good questions. Absolutely agree. Mr. Shah, I raised hand to answer. Please go ahead. We have a lot of participants. If you can keep questions very to the point so that everyone gets a chance. Go ahead.
Just a quick clarification with Maldarji. What he spoke was from his heart. And why I talked about meeting our diaspora anywhere in the world is because what we have seen in the past, which Mr. Maldar will also, I'm sure he will agree to. We have seen in the past that Kashmir diaspora across the world, and particularly Pandit diaspora across the world, has had a very major say in developing the narrative on Kashmir. Well, I wouldn't like to say here what has been done, and that would be, that's what I said, when we sit face to face, that would be better. That's why I want to have a word with him. Otherwise, what Mr. Maldar said, I agree to his point, word by word, what he has said, because the problem is there in Jammu, the problem is there in Srinagar, the problem is in the country where others are living. And when we talk about this, what you call this, my dear friend Mr. Surrinder, when he said about the exodus, that we want to really go in for a commission of inquiry. That's why I said, I raised both my hands, said yes, we are the first one. As a Kashmiri Muslim, I am telling you, I am the first one to say yes, go ahead, and so that we know who is the real culprit who did this. Thank you.
Thank you, Shah Saab. Your questions are received, and hopefully you get your answer, Mr. Maldar. I have Shafalika Ban waiting very patiently.
Hello.
30 seconds. I just want to say on this platform, I just want to say very clearly, we reject once place settlement. We want to go back freely to all my temples. I cannot be said that you sacrifice me all my temples. We reject outrightly one place settlement. Thank you very much. Sorry for inconvenience.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Sure.
you. Good points.
Sure. Thank you, Maldarji. Thank you. Very correctly said.
Shifalika ji, please.
Okay. Sorry, am I audible now?
Yes.
My question is for Shah Sahab. Shah Sahab, you very nicely said our land is for sale. You know, Kashmiri Hindus, your land is for sale. I'm wondering what your view is on what land are we talking about? As you probably know, we have lost most of the land there to people who we sold it for like a pittance. You know, your esteemed grandfather, he passed the land to the Tiller Act and half the villages were lost then. And okay, that's history now. But what about in 1990? You know, I have a friend, I'm calling from London. I have a friend who lives next door. He had 100 plus acres of land in Sopore. And you know how much he sold it for? He sold it for 2 lakh rupees. So is this the land we are talking about? It's very easy to say, oh, come your land. But I think we have lost most of our land already. Thank you. That was a question for Shah Sahab.
Why did he sell the land for 200 rupees? Why did he do 2 lakhs? Why? Why did he do that?
I will tell you why. Because 2 of his family members were kidnapped. One was killed. The whole family left the village in the middle of the night. They came to Jammu. They had no house to live. They had no clothes. They had no food to eat. His father, his grandmother was a widow then. She was the owner of the land. They had no food to eat. Okay. And then how do you sustain a family? You have to do something. And then somebody from his own village, a person who was his neighbor for decades and centuries, you know, they've been living, you know, Sopore is a place where people have lived together. You know, I'm from Srinagar. I have lived 18 years of my life there. I know what Sopore was. Yeah. People really live together there. Yes. So, and then no house. He had sisters who had to be married. Then somebody, his own friend, came from the village and told him, this is all I can do now. You know, you are going to lose the land anyway. Please take these 2 lakhs.
I understand your pain and your anguish. Well, let me answer you, as a brother.
Yeah.
I wish the way the administration at that time had made arrangements to quickly remove all our Pandit brethren of whatever, we will not go into that, what was happening at that time, who did it and what happened. I wish this gentleman who you're talking about, he would have gone to the same administration. And I can say very clearly, he would have gone to the governor at that time, who was supposedly to be very effective, Mr. Jagmohan. How did this happen under his watch and ward? That's my counter question to you.
Well, I think you have forgotten. I think you have forgotten that Jagmohan ji, his hands were totally tied. He was left with no say in the land at that time. I was very young then, but you probably know that.
It was not tied. And we have these kinds of cases. We have these kinds of cases. A lot of cases like that.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a Gupkar gang, which is currently Gupkar gang. That was the administration at that time.
No, sir, it was not.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It was not.
So sorry, Shah Sahab, coming back to your question.
Whosoever was saying that, if you are referring to Dr. Farooq Abdullah, he had left at that time. He had resigned.
Oh, he hadn't resigned. He had left. He came London. He was at he had left.
But the case you're talking about, though I'm not here to defend his government's action.
Yes. Okay.
See, by making these statements, what you're doing by making these statements is that you're not sincere in finding the way forward. You're just making up things. You can say that okay, Abdullah had gone to London and therefore was not in control, but it was his establishment which was in control.
Absolutely.
No, not at all. You're wrong.
Okay, sorry.
You can say that, but that shows how insincere this whole thing is.
Yeah, how do you say his establishment was in control? How? When it was under the control of Governor Jagmohan, how are you saying that?
Okay, sorry, Muzaffar Shah ji, and continuation with my question, because you said that the person should have gone to the government. You very well know you are part of the government, that there was no government there. At that time in 1990, there was no government in Kashmir. Okay?
No, there was a government in place.
Okay,
sorry.
fine. Okay.
Uh,
And
res-
also, when you say that he should have gone to the government, you didn't hear what I said earlier. His family was killed. And do you think in that condition, people will go and find the government and ask them to restore their land? Unfortunately, that's the reality.
People were butchered on the roads. I know that.
Absolutely.
Kashmiri pandits as well as hundreds of Muslims.
So, Mr. Shah and Sadika, I think we have to move on. We have to move on. Let's.
Thank you, Shah sir. Thank you, Shah sir, for your reply. Thank you.
Yes, we will talk and we'll say, okay, what happened? What is to be done?
Okay,
absolutely.
We look forward to that. Thank you.
Wrong can be done by you. There's no doubt about that. I accept that fact.
Thank you for accepting. Thank you.
We can't pinpoint a blame on somebody.
No, this is not a blame. This is a reality, because you said really nicely that our land. I'm thinking, where is the land?
Yes,
thousands of acres of land already lost. Thank you.
And you're talking about land to the Tiller Act. Well, it benefited 720,000 families, and out of that, very close to 220,000 families were non-Muslims.
Okay.
Oh
Thank
boy.
you.
I think we ought to move on. I think we ought to move on.
That's fine. I got what you're saying.
Good
Thank
questions.
you. And I hope I didn't ruffle any feathers with anybody. I didn't mean that.
No, thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Shafalika, very good question. It's very painful to hear such stories. It's very sad. I understand what Chasab is saying, but I also understand, where you're coming from. It would not have been that easy to go to the government and ask when you're in pain and in fear. I know a lot of people. I know actually a very successful Kashmiri pandit in a great position of power. He sold land which probably is worth 100 crores today for like 20 lakh rupees, 8 years, and he didn't have to really do it.
Fact.
He just did it out of his own will. I spoke with him. Why are you selling? He's like, I am doing it. But anyways, a lot of wrongs have been done. People panic. People make decisions. We will correct. So I have Mr. Mohan Sapru. If you can just ask a question rather a statement, Sapru Sahab, that'll be great, because we have Dr. Sazwal also waiting in line here to say a few words.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to admire Ibadat Khana for starting this dialogue. But I have to be very honest here. I'm not somebody who is just abroad and other people. Many of us are those who have lived in Srinagar and have been forced out due to exodus and genocide during 1989 and 1990. So we are very much part of that history, having gone through it firsthand. Now, with that said, I don't think we can really solve anything as a goal of Ibadat Khana, as long as people keep on trying to sanitize the history, as long as people try to keep on giving justifications why one should become terrorist, why people should become separatist. I don't think that's making any progress. But I have a specific question for Mr. Shah. I have a question for Mr. Shah was that, why is it legally as well as socially acceptable for Kashmiri Muslims, for Kashmiri Hindus, to buy land and settle in any part of India, as well as buy land abroad and settle happily there? If that is normal, that is legal, that's acceptable, then why is it not acceptable for any Indian to go to Kashmir and buy land?
That's a very good question, Mr. Sapru. Thank you very much for putting this question, Mr. Sapru. I really appreciate your question. Well, this is what the forefathers of modern India guaranteed a citizen of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh through their constitution. When the union and the state joined under Article 370, it was that guarantee that was given to me by the constitution, that as a state subject of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh, belonging to any religion, I can go anywhere in the country and live there, buy my land, and do what I like. That was a concession and a privilege given to me, to you, and to me also. It is the constitution that gave me that privilege. Thank you very much.
Well, I think just a small follow-up on that is, as much as we try to sanitize history, it's pretty well known that there were no conditions for accession of Jammu and Kashmir to India in 1947. We all know that. The temporary provisions like 35 and 370, which were incorporated subsequently as a temporary measure, if we try to take aid of that, those temporary measures have to go, particularly when situation in Jammu and Kashmir has turned what it was, when those articles did not do good but did harm to the
then
rest of the world.
370 has a, you have to listen to that also, sir.
Well, actually, at some time listening to that too.
370 was temporary.
Exactly.
And
As per
temporary,
the
let you read
temporary
Gopalaswamy
provision in the temporary provision.
It is temporary then till you give plebiscite. Simple.
No, it's temporary,
Yes,
which could be withdrawn by government of India as per the constitution.
I can show it to you right now. Right now, I can show it to you.
I can show you to right now a lot of documents about that too. That's, I think we can debate that till evening time. But it does not answer.
Leave it to the constitutional experts. Better for this. You and me are not constitutional experts.
Oh gosh.
I can't hear you, sir.
I can't hear anybody.
We cannot solve that. We cannot have double standards about it. That anybody, all Kashmiri Muslims can go and settle anybody in India, but anybody comes from there supposed to be not
What gave us the right to live anywhere in the world, in the country? I answered you. It is the Constitution of India that gave me.
Well, the Constitution of India
Okay, all right.
has been
Sorry,
withdrawn.
I'll have to intervene. I'll have to mute.
That has been withdrawn. Let us.
Sorry, I'll have to mute. I have to mute.
Please.
Sorry, Shah Saab.
To the people here.
Okay.
It may be acceptable to you there.
I think, Mr. Kak, you raised your hand. You want to answer and respond
I'm sorry,
to that?
that's what it is like. Not
Unmute
acceptable.
yourself, Mr. Kak, sir.
No, firstly, I'm very grateful to Ibadat Khana that I have this privilege to listen to such enlightened minds and such committed minds. But I think I'm a little disappointed, not a little, hugely disappointed, that, this whole business of othering and sanitization of truths is actually introducing an unpleasant and unacceptable impulse into our very, very rich conversations. Firstly, we must get our facts right. We can interpret facts the way we want to. That's convenient. You can have your view, I can have a view. But there are no liberties you can take with facts. The reason why 370 is ostensibly termed as temporary, because it is in the constitution, it is under the heading of special and temporary and transient powers. It is under that. Then the second part of this temporary is what Muzaffar Shah rightly said was, of course, he didn't, I don't agree with that it was awaiting plebiscite, but that's also a factor. Of course, it was at that time questionable whether we will continue the way which we did, because there was a commitment to have a plebiscite. Now, we can disagree with why we committed, why we didn't commit it. That's a different issue. Let's get the facts. The facts are that the temporary provision was there because it was at a time when the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir had not been established. It had been agreed that this 370 in its implementation with multiple policies defining relationship between center and state, this would be decided by the Constituent Assembly, which was established in Jammu and Kashmir. And the then Constitution Assembly disassembled sometimes in 1957 January. That was the point, that was the time, Mohanji is right, that was the point we should have, as a collective in the nation, decided, will it be a temporary or will it be a permanent one? The answers given by the white paper of the government of India. Now, that's what I'm saying. We must quote documentation. We must not quote emotion. Emotion is not going to help us. The documentation says, because there is a dispute, we are at a point where plebiscite may take place. This is what Muzaffar's point comes in here. Plebiscite could take place. Therefore, we will ensure that this word temporary continues even after the Constituent Assembly has. There are records available by which both Sardar Patel and Shama Prasad Mukherjee, I can quote them, I mean, everybody can quote here if the time permits, that they accepted this temporary provision of 370 on there. There was also a point made earlier, I think here again, with the highest respect for Dr. Surrinder Kaul, I think he mixed up 35A and 370. 35A defines permanent resident or what was then called state subject. Whereas that is where in that category you have the Valmikis who were brought in, temporary hands to meet the challenge of the strike by the sanitation workers. And that time there is no writing, there is nothing in writing that we will give you permanent status. They couldn't be given permanent status. West Pakistan refugees came, they couldn't be given because law was against it. It is as per 1927 proclamation of the Maharaja of Hari Singh, who accepted, as was said earlier, the Hindu Yuva Sabha. Please read the documentation. Hindu Yuva Sabha in Kashmir and the Dogra Sabha in Jammu collectively approached the Maharaja, please give us this protection. This has been incorporated in the constitution of Jammu and Kashmir. And because it was in the constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, before that, before it could be put in the constitution, it had to be done in the constitution of India. That is why an executive order was issued in 1954 and then it was incorporated in the constitution. I think these facts in many ways throw light on the documentation which clearly establishes that while the instrument accession may have been same as with 564 states, those states surrendered their sovereignty to the sovereignty of India. Jammu and Kashmir did not. I repeat, quote me, please. Jammu and Kashmir did not surrender its sovereignty. It said, we will negotiate our sovereignty. And this was when Maharaja Hari Singh was still the Maharaja and subsequently replaced by Sheikh Abdullah. And that is the process of negotiations from October 27th onwards to 26th of October 29. This is a period of 2 years. Those negotiations took place for that relationship. You cannot equate Jammu and Kashmir with any other state of India. I think this is my submission in terms of documentation and facts of history.
Correct. So, Muzaffar, can I take just a minute if you don't mind?
Yes.
Just a minute, if you don't mind.
Please do.
Yeah, first of all, I clubbed Article 370 and 35A together. And Article 370 was because of the governance breakdown. There was no accountability. There was no, and I quoted about the CAG report that lots of wrongs were continuing because of that article with no validation, no accountability. So that both things I clubbed. As regards my question to all panelists is that, laws cannot be permanent. Laws can be always changed. There has been 34 amendments to the J&K Constitution. There has been hundreds of amendments to the Indian Constitution. And these laws are created to facilitate the people. If there are any wrongdoings, there is a process to correct it. And I'm not a constitutional expert, but as per se, I see that Article 370 was abrogated the same way it was incorporated into the Constitution, into the Indian Constitution. But that is for the constitutional experts experts to deliberate upon. My question to all of the panelists is, including Shah Sahab, that let us say it is hypothetical. If after 2 years or 5 years, the constitutional experts say that yes, whatever things were taken care of, they are within the ambit of the law, what will happen then? What are we going to do? What will be our stand?
Surinderji, I will answer that. It's not constitutional experts. It is the Constitution. The
Yes, exactly.
Supreme Court is the ultimate authority for interpretation of laws which are issued out and promulgated by the executive. It is a balance between three elements which define Indian polity: the executive, the judiciary, and of
The
course the
legislature.
parliament and the legislature. Now, you have a very good point, Surrinder ji, but I would like to submit for your consideration. Yes, the Article 370 itself has in it, under Article 373, there is a clause 3, which defines as to how Article 370 can be removed. Of course, it says it, you're right. It doesn't require us to reinterpret Article 370 in historical terms, in terms of the contemporary nature of the changed world. It is given in the Article 370. But regrettably, that provision has not been incorporated on 5th of August in the manner it should be done. I'm not a constitutional expert, nor are you. But may I suggest to you, please read Article 1 of the Indian Constitution. Just read it. It's a 5-liner. Article 1 is the defining article of India and its constitution. What does it say? India, comma, that is Bharat, comma, comprises of A, B, C, D, names all the states, Jammu and Kashmir, brackets, subject to Article 370, bracket close.
Yes.
That is why the government did not abrogate Article 370. It's not been abrogated.
Yeah, that's true.
It's been nullified. Because if you abrogate Article 370, as the narrative here seems to suggest, everybody is in support of abrogating it. The moment you abrogate, Jammu and Kashmir is a sovereign republic on its own. So,
no, my question was,
second, hold on. I'm coming to all your questions. I'll answer all your questions. Just have patience if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just submit for your consideration. You don't have to be an constitutional expert. Please read Article 3 of the Constitution. Article 3 of the Constitution prohibits, repeat, prohibits a state being broken into 2 union territories. Or
Absolutely.
1 or 3 or 4.
Absolutely.
It's brazen. It's brazen violation. So to come to your concluding question, yes, if the Constitution of India, as interpreted by the Supreme Court on my petition, there are 22 other petitioners, says that Kapil Kak is wrong. Article 370 is hereby removed. I don't think we can have our reservations personally, but we believe in the supremacy of law. The issue is settled. But I have a counter question to you. What will the Kashmiri Pandit diaspora do? If the Supreme Court in its wisdom says every single action which has been taken by the government of India on 5th of August 2019 is hereby declared ultra vires of the Constitution and therefore illegal. There is no, we cannot go to any other authority. What will the Kashmiri Pandit diaspora do? I want you to give me your narrative. I have given you my narrative. You give me yours.
Yes. First of all, all the citizens, all the Kashmiri Pandits are law-abiding citizens, those who are living in India. They value the system, the democratic system, the laws. And if that is true, I mean, so everybody has to follow that. So my question is about Kashmiri Pandits as a fabric of Kashmir. As you have contributed immensely to India, building India, Muzaffar Shah, his family has done, Katju Sahab has done. I mean, say we bring in a lot of things. So if there is a sort of a dialogue process, settle down our issues amicably, there is a huge, it will be a force multiplier. Ours is just a simple thing that, I know Satish Mahadar said that somebody said that, hey, we don't agree to single pay settlement, but this is the majority of the voices coming from the community, and that cannot be. It's a very sensitive thing, and they have to follow the way of growth, especially in the past historic perspective, what happened with them. I don't think it's pretty much very much aligned with the coexistence and moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. It's awesome. Shah Sahab, okay, real quick, because I think Dr. Shahzad was waiting.
You want me to say?
No, I thought you raised your hand. You want to say something?
Kapilji narrated the entire, almost as a constitutional expert, and he talked about Article 1 and Article 3. But what I've gone very deeply, I read into it during our custody also, is that the Article 370 was neither temporary nor is it permanent. It was specifically done for Jammu and Kashmir. It is specific to J&K because of the nature of the geographical condition, the political condition, the economic condition at that time. The Maharajas, this all property is British, and there's a big it's volumes into it. But one thing very categorically mentioned in there, 370, what we are agitating before the courts, and it will be very difficult for the court to say no to that. Very difficult. Is that the 370 can neither be abrogated by the parliament, neither can it be abrogated by the President of India. Government of India, no way. It cannot also be abrogated, or it cannot be touched by even the Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. It can only be amended, altered, or abrogated by the Constitution Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, which unfortunately ceased working in 1957. It left it like that, how it was. So you can't touch it. That is law.
Muzaffar Sahab, can I ask you one question? Muzaffar Sahab, can I ask you one simple question? I know that you said that the Constitution of India has guaranteed these rights. Why do you need Article 370?
I don't know. You asked the Constitution of the forefathers of modern India. You asked
No.
Patel.
Fine. We have done lots of wrongs. We have done lots of wrongs. But I'm asking a fair question. When you say that Kashmir is much better than Gujarat, why do you need Article 370?
I'll tell you why, sir. I'll tell you why. The owner of Jammu and Kashmir state was Maharaja Hari Singh at that time. He entered into an accession. He said, okay, I keep everything with me. You will only get defense, foreign affairs, and communication. And also one more thing. You will not touch my constitution. You will not touch my flag. And you will not touch my boundary. When we touched our boundary here, we broke our state into 2 union territories. My dear friends in the BJP, without realizing what they are going through.
No, Shah Sahab, you didn't address the core point. You didn't address the core point.
I'll address. Your question is extremely important, and I think it deserves respect, and it deserves the correct answer. Why does Jammu and Kashmir need Article 370? Whether it is valid, whether it's not valid, whether there's a rationale for it or there is no rationale for it, it is an intrinsic belief amongst Kashmiris, and I'm a Kashmiri too, that this is an article which provides for a certain level of speciality to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Right or wrong is subject to interpretation. But it is today an article of faith with every single Kashmiri. So therefore, when you say we are giving 10 times more as aid, we meaning central government, to Jammu and Kashmir compared to rest of the Indians being a special state, that it could well be removed. That is not the point. The point is no. And this, please, I would request everyone to make a note of what I am saying. If the central government of India decides to do a certain action for a state under the principles underlying constitution and the letter and spirit of federalism. Please understand, India is a federal nation. There is federalism prevalent. There's a balance between states and the union, and that has to be maintained for internal coherence. And as far as I'm concerned, for grand strategy and comprehensive security of India, that is vital. Now, in this, consultation with the people of Jammu and Kashmir is vital before you take at the central level any decision affecting Jammu and Kashmir. That is why I think Muzaffar Saab will agree with me. There are 4 words in the Gupkar Declaration which are profound. Nothing for us. Surrinder ji, please listen to me. Nothing for us without us.
Yes, absolutely.
I know whose words these are. I don't want to.
See,
I don't want to
I'm
name
so
him here.
sorry.
But what does it say? What does it say? Nothing for us without us is the profundity of Indian federalism. That the center cannot take any action for a state involving its future without consultation with that state. And that consultation is with the legislative assembly of that state, duly elected by, under the arrangements of the most credible institution of India, the Election Commission of India. So therefore, whatever has been said apart from the constitutional arrangement is the fact that it strikes against federalism, which has been defined by the Supreme Court in its interpretation of the Constitution as the basic structure of the Constitution. It's like the life of the Constitution. So therefore, the
I respect.
actions that have been taken in the manner they have been taken, in fact, and legalism. It's legalism. I'm not talking about emotion. Legally, this action, but it is subject to constitution. Supreme Court also made a judgment in a particular case where it said the demolition of Babri Masjid was a criminal act. It said that is a Supreme Court judgment, but then allotted the land to the people against whom the crime had been committed.
Yeah, I respect your right to say, but I'm sorry, I disagree with the rationale that has been given. I wish that there was a better rationale.
You need to read more. I would only submit if you can read more, then we can have a more.
I have done my research also, because if we give that right to a fellow citizen of India, how do we deny that right from a person of Rajasthan or Bihar who are asking for special status? On what basis do we deny those rights to them?
The Constitution. That can only be decided by the Supreme Court. You and I can't decide it.
1947.
Yeah, I think these are discussions we can continue.
Were not the conditions that were prevalent in 1947. Please go and do more research on that part. That how this happened, how J&K and the Union came into coexistence. It's a huge subject. It's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling.
Yes, thank you, Shah Saab. Thank you, Zutshi Saab, making that comment on the thing. There's a lot of discussion. We are wanting to keep it civil. We are trying to keep it intellectually and factually correct, legally correct, constitutionally correct. And absolutely, we'll continue these discussions. There is I don't think we can really do justice to the participants who have been here waiting patiently because they have questions. But at least I want to give 3 to 5 minutes to Dr. Sazwal. He has been waiting patiently. He heard Dr. Sazwal is a founding member of Indian American Kashmiri Forum and served twice as president. He is currently the coordinator of IAKF and other overseas counterparts, Indo-Canadian Kashmiri Forum and Indo-European Kashmiri Forum. Dr. Sazwal is actually a specialist in nuclear fuel cycle technologies with over 4 decades of professional experience in advanced nuclear energy programs. He was also a member of U.S. Department of Commerce Civil Nuclear Trade Advisory Committee, an advisory to which he was appointed by the U.S. government in 2011. So with Dr. Sazwal, again, thanks for your patience. I know you would like to speak. You will probably want to answer, but please know we're like really 5 minutes to wrap up the session. Hopefully, you can keep your conversation to the point.
Well, as
Go ahead.
long as you can mute others, I would really like to have 5 minutes of speak without a contention of going into a debate.
Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear
Okay.
it. You have
All right.
5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. As I was listening to the people, I was making some notes here. We talked about emotional facts. We talked about made-up facts. We talked about actual facts. And then there was this gentleman who said, one of our speakers is making facts as he goes along. So we have had quite an interesting mix of people. But the fact of the matter is, India is a nation of laws. If you do not agree to that contention, then we are wasting our time in this particular exercise. And if you accept the fact that India is a nation of laws, then quite frankly, the discussion on 370 and all that is really should have been left to the whims of whatever the Supreme Court will come back. I think if people are going to give tutorials on both sides of what the story is like, you are just wasting your time. I think that is not going to help Ibadat Khan. And another thing that's not going to help Ibadat Khan is if we go into polemics and claim things like Kashmir is a prison, nobody can come out, nobody can come. I mean, that is utter nonsense. There is no such thing like a prison or anything like that. Anybody can come in and go out. There are 20 to 25 flights a day, and so on and so forth. So I think for Ibadat Khan to succeed, in my point of view, you have to be really focused. You have to recognize realities as they are, not as you wish them to be, and then go from there and then decide what you wish it to happen in the future. So the past cannot be wished. Past is a past and past is factual. I'm not going to repeat what I said on the October 4th webinar, but essentially I laid out in detail where Dr. Surrinder Kaul talked about CAG and all that. I laid out in detail. Essentially, BJP started from 1954 with an idea that they want to remove Article 370 as a political. They didn't look at its politics or legal or anything like that. It was a political decision on their part. They put it on their manifesto. They kept getting beaten up every next election until they reached to the point where they could do so. But more critically, in my mind, where the idea of UT came in, which also I detailed in detail in the last webinar, which I'm not going to repeat, was in the years between 2010 and 2014. 2010 and 2014, BJP added to the 370 unannounced addition, which was not announced, was the fact that once they will do that, they will also do a UT of the state will be demoted to a UT. And they did it, again, to repeat the key points. They did it because of the law and order situation. They did it for national security reasons. And they did it for basically a very, very, unrepresentative political empowerment that had taken place in the state. So these were the three things. And these are the three major constituents. So when you are talking about restoring those things, apart from the fact the Supreme Court is going to decide on certain issues. And if Supreme Court doesn't decide in the manner that obviously some of the people are hoping for, then how do you turn it back from UT to a state? Quite frankly, I said that in the last meeting also, the state has to earn it, because state has to show the law and order situation has changed for the better. The national security issues are taken addressed, and these are different constituencies in Delhi. These are not simply BJP. These are national security constituencies. These are administrative bureaucratic constituencies. They all have to decide at the end that the state is come back within the norms of what they consider to be a functional state like other states of India. So Kashmiris can live in the bubble and can imagine all their dreams of what I will do or what I will not do, how I will do it or how I will not do it. It's either the Supreme Court that decides on this issue, or you have to earn the return because you have to address the issues of law and order, national security and power empowerment. But I defined this group that basically benefited from that system as being as being the ruling class. I called it the ruling class. I didn't give it a religious flavor because quite frankly, it is non-denominational. But it is the class that basically benefited at the expense of majority of the people out in rural areas and all that non-Kashmiri, non-English speaking Kashmiris that didn't benefit from it. Now it's interesting. One of the contentions I made it didn't matter to me whether you are in a ruling party or you're out of ruling party or you're a separatist. You're all in that ruling class that basically control this flow. And lo and behold, on 15th of October, I was proved wrong. I mean, I was proved right when PAGD came into play. You know, it was essentially ruling class basically making public the fact that it didn't matter whether you belong to PDP or National Conference or whatever. We're all in it together because, you know, it's our all stakes are in you know, we have been displaced and we want to claim back what we had. My only personal problem is that I wish they hadn't named it Gupkar, this thing, you know, my ancestor Gopaditya probably is turning in his soul thinking, you know, wish they had named it Sonovar Declaration or something like that, but be it may, they decided it was going to be Gupkar. But now let's focus on the true purpose that I think you asked us to be here, which was, what do we do about Kashmiri Pandits and Kashmiri Muslims? How can they have a dialogue? We had some points that were made by Jeevan Ji in the first seminar, which I think was very, very, very much to the point. But the fact is, from my perspective, all politics is local. As much as I like to talk about China and the Pakistan, all that, no, to me, all politics is local. So how the Kashmiri Muslim community has handled its interactions and interfaces with Kashmiri Pandits, and not by making up these fake facts that we heard from one of the speakers, how that has happened is really a matter of consideration. Even in 1948, when Sheikh Abdullah created his cabinet, he had Shamlal Saraf as one of the major cabinet ministers. He had subsequently D.P. Dar join the cabinet. Over the years, we have had cabinet ministers of Pyarelal Handu, Makhanlal Fauzdar, Khemlata Waklu. We had Raman Matu. We even had at one time a Kashmiri Pandit as the chairman of the Legislative Council, Shivnarayan Fotada. So we had significant political empowerment in the state. It trickled down to zero. So when you consider that what happened to us essentially in 1989, 1991, when basically, you know, a blot on the Kashmiriyat, a blot on the Kashmiri Muslim majority, that they would not only they were acquiescent to their departure, but in fact they made no effort ever since then to really bring them back other than the lip service. So we have to recognize that even as late as 1996, there were almost 18,000 Kashmiri Pandits living in the valley. We have actually a log of that. And then it came down to 2019 to 3,000. I know Air Vice Marshal Cox said they are up again because of these people who are, which I call the floating number, because they are really not really settled in the valley. They're coming for those jobs and things like that. So essentially what happened is, people are wondering what happened in 2019. Why are Kashmiri Pandits all not concerned about what happened, or most of them are not concerned about what happened? It is because we were basically neutered. There was no political empowerment in the hands of the Kashmiri Pandits. There was no reason for us to support whatever the ruling class had done and inflicted on our people, because they had made they were party to the genocide in that sense, in the sense of their dispersal. Then they were party to the fact that they didn't want to bring them back, no matter which party it was, whether it was National Conference, it was PDP, it was Indian National Congress. Every chief minister gave the same lip service and didn't do anything about it. So we reached to the point where I will say we are today, and the fact of the matter is, where are we today? Where we are today is we are still not part of the J&K budget. Kashmiri Pandit rehabilitation and return is not part of the J&K budget. It is a below the line budget item. You got to go and talk to the Prime Minister in Delhi and their people, and bureaucrats have to go and assign the people to those people. Why is not the Kashmiri Pandit rehabilitation part of the J&K budget? Why can't we commit to these people and classify them as essentially an endangered race, and give them if we can assign 1%, I'm saying 1/10 of a 1%, not even 1%, 1/10 of a 1% of the state's annual budget to their relief and rehabilitation. You know how much 1/10 of a 1% in today's terms is when you have an annual budget of 1 lakh crores. It's almost 100 crores. So it's only 1/10. It's not even a big deal. Why can't we do that? Why can't we have people coming out and saying that yes, that Kashmiri Pandits, what will gladden my heart? Tasawwur, what will gladden my heart is if tomorrow National Conference and PDP announce we have fundamental differences with Government of India in not joining the Delimitation Commission, but we're going to join the Delimitation Commission with only a single motive. And that single motive is we want to make sure that Kashmiri Pandits have 3 to 4 seats in the Constituent Assembly, because that's what they used to have in early 50s and early 60s until Sheikh Abdullah came and basically did gerrymandering and essentially dissipated all the Kashmiri Pandit localities into by attaching them to various other side constituencies and so on and so forth. If they would show me good, that is an act of good faith. I don't want somebody to go up and go to my mandir, which is next door, and say, you're my brothers and things like that. That's nonsense. I want to see something practical happen. I want to see a commitment where somebody says, okay, I am not joining the Delimitation Commission because I have moral problems with it, but I will join it because I want to make sure my subjects, Kashmiri Pandits, get their due in the revised delimitation process. I want to see that kind of an action. I want to see a commitment where it says 1/10 of 1% of the state budget will go for Kashmiri Pandits. They are not going to be part of some program from Delhi. They have to be a part of the citizens of state. They are citizens of state. They deserve the citizenry budget. If militant families can get money from the state budget, why can't Kashmiri Pandits get the money from the state budget? Why do they have to rely on some other source that's there? I mean, it was very funny. Other day, Mr. Mir came to Jammu. He went to, this is our Congress party chief. He went to Jammu. He went to Jagti that, Mr. Mahaldar talked about. And he offered sympathy to those people there. But there, he couldn't help himself. He said, well, subject to the fact that if we get money from Delhi, we will give. He should have been saying, why isn't J&K government giving that money right now? I mean, he's not even a ruling power. He's not even in power, so he can say anything he wants. But they all want to protect that thing. They don't want Kashmiri Pandits back integrated into Kashmir's economy. So if we are talking about real things, we can talk about polemics, we can talk about prisons, we can talk about 370, we can talk about a lot of nonsense. But the fact is, if we're talking about Kashmiri Pandits and Kashmiri Muslims coming together, there have to be some injustice that have to be fixed up. There have to be some things that have to be corrected. And you cannot play games and explain by lengthy, oh, then I was here, then I was a member of that, then I was a member of this. That doesn't work. We need a no BS path forward. And I think that will be the success of Ibadat Khana. If you can manage that, I would say it will be a good thing to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sazwal. To the point, your expressions, your views heard very clear. Shah Saab would like to respond. I saw him raise his hand. Shah Saab, you want to unmute yourself and respond?
Just a quick 2 or 3 points to Sazwal Saab. I heard him with rapt attention and with respect. I heard him with all due respects to him. Let me just tell him that BJP is not India. That's number one. Number two, you have to put this question pointedly to the Prime Minister, who is very aggressive on Kashmir. That, Mr. Prime Minister, what have you done about me for the last 7 years you have been in power? Why you have not given me 100, like you have said, 100 crores you want? He could have given 700 crores till now. Why hasn't he done it? He has got a majority. If he could scrap Article 370 from the Constitution of India, he might as well give 100 crores. What has stopped him? Please put this question to the Prime Minister. I would be very glad to hear an answer from him. It's very important to ask him what you have done for 7 years. Even I am asking you, what have you done? You say, fine, okay, earlier governments did nothing. Fine, please ask them. What has he
I
done?
believe you didn't understand Sazwal Saab's question. And his question was that, leaving aside India, the first thing is, is the Kashmiri Pandit rehabilitation, is there any budget allocated by the J&K government? So how do you counter that point? Leaving aside, let's forget about India, right?
I am
the Prime Minister's part.
I am very simply saying, as Prime Minister, I am putting this question through you now to the Prime Minister, what I have heard just now.
No, we will deal with the Prime Minister. We will be talking to
from the government of India to the state government and say, okay, here, this is the special package for Kashmiri Pandits. Why not? What stops him?
No, does the J&K government absolve itself towards the duty of the Kashmiri Pandits? That is the question.
Not at all. Not at all, sir. Not at all.
So why there has not been no budget allocated towards the Kashmiri Pandit redressal of their grievances by the state budget?
Not at all, sir. The state budget has a provision. I don't know the figure, sir.
You are lying, sir. You are lying, sir. I'm going to confront you right on the point. You are lying. That is not true. There is no contention in that budget. And the fact of the matter is, if it has money for the militants' rehabilitation, it should have the money for Kashmiri Pandits also.
Sir, let me also say one thing. First of all, you take your words back that you're lying because I don't know about it. And I can't be lying.
Well, you said there is something in the budget.
Mr. Sazwal, please, let's use very decent language.
Well, we are using decent language.
No, you're not. I'm sorry. You're not. I am saying very clearly to you on your face. Please ask the Prime Minister of India. What stops him from giving you 100 crores a year? He has been in power for 7 years. Please ask him.
Let me
I would be very glad to know.
Let me repeat what I said. All politics is local. All politics is local. Everything is local. All politics is local. You tell me what the Kashmiri Muslim leadership has done for Kashmiri Pandits. I gave you instances when our people were in the political empowerment. They were cabinet ministers. Why are they not cabinet ministers today? Why is there not a single cabinet minister from Kashmiri Pandit in the last 10 years in the J&K when there was parliamentary or legislative rule? Yeah. Why were not there any Kashmiri Pandits in there?
I think we're having a good discussion. I think these are questions probably Shah Saab can answer, Dr. Sazwal, in all fairness. He is not the government, so I don't think he has capable to ask.
Send him an email. And he has asked 2 questions. Why were there no Kashmiri Pandits in the cabinet in the last 10 years? I will, and this question is definitely to be asked to the people who are in power here. That's number 1. Number 2, and what is the provision for the Kashmiri Pandit rehabilitation in our budget? Yes, these 2 questions I will definitely answer, sir. Thank you.
Thank you,
Shah Saab. I would like to respectfully ask one more question. Shah Saab, what are your views when we ask about political empowerment and a sort of a one-place settlement with Muslims so that we have that confidence to grow? How do you react to that? What is your take on that?
Come again, sir. Please come again.
No, my question was that what are your views if Kashmiri Pandits are asking for political empowerment?
Absolutely. I am with you. They have to get political empowerment.
Thank you so much. Second part of the question was, given what has happened with the Kashmiri Pandit community over the period of time, especially in the reference to 1989, if Kashmiri Pandits are asking about, because, you guys, everybody you are saying, and we love that, hey, you come back to your homes. But, my take on that is when you say very affectionately, you are our brethren, we'll build your houses, you come back to your homes. But we need to realize that there are no homes. Those homes are not existing. So when the Kashmiri Pandit community says that, hey, we need to have that confidence. And if J&K is having a smart city, why not to rehabilitate how many ever will go in a single place so that they get the confidence and they do their way of life. There might be some disagreements coming from within our community also, but theoretically, how do you respond to that?
Smart cities, what you talked about just now, smart cities are being built by the governments now in office. And while this action is on, please ask them, what have you done for us? where is my share in this smart city? You have to ask them because they are the planner.
No, Shah Sahab, I'm asking you, what is your take on that?
If it was up to me, I'll also tell you, if tomorrow the government comes into my hands, I would sit down with all of us together and say, hello, this is what has happened with you in 1990, and this is what has happened to us from 1990. It is both ways. It is pain. It is despair. Blood on the streets.
So, Shah Sahab,
we have to sit down and settle these matters.
Shah Sahab, I wanted to add to Dr. Kaul's question.
Not only one community that has to be looked into. You come into Srinagar and see. You come into Kashmir and see what has happened with the majority community here.
Shah Sahab, let me kind of add to Dr. Kaul's question.
20,000 widows, 25,000 half widows.
Shah Sahab, can you hear me?
Oh, it is both ways, sir.
Can you hear me?
I understand your pain, but please understand my pain also.
I don't think he can hear me.
It's not a one-way traffic, sir. I'm sorry.
Shah Sahab, there is a request. Shah Sahab, there is a request. जो सजावल साहब ने भी अभी कहा था, जबकि आप गुपकार के one of the members, you are for the Gupkar.
Now, I'm one of the founders
what stops,
of that.
Right. So
yes.
So what stops you now? What stops you now? In fact, मैंने आपसे शिकायत पहले भी की कि इतने सालों में जितने भी लीडर्स थे, किसी ने कश्मीरी पंडित्स के रिहैबिलिटेशन की बात नहीं करी. अब आप ये कह रहे हैं for Kashmiris for Kashmiris appreciate. Now, since now there is an alliance from the Gupkar, all political leaders are there. What stops you now to raise up a voice from the Gupkar that we want Kashmiri Pandits to be rehabilitated? One. Two, what Sazwal Sahab was saying that there should be a budget to rehabilitate Kashmiri Pandit. There should be a separate budget. Why the budget is not there? I don't think so. There should be a harm. It will be a goodwill gesture from all the one step ahead to move ahead rather than, we are pushing each other on agreeing and disagreeing.
Aldar Sahab,
sir,
we are going to be in Jammu on the 7th.
Sir.
And 7th is going to be a very critical meeting in Jammu because we had one meeting in Kargil, which I'm sure you must have followed it.
Yeah.
And after Jammu, we are going to go most likely into the Pir Panjal area and the Chenab area. After that, hopefully into Leh. And if you have got time, please come into Jammu. And you have given me 2 points. One is what will we do about rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits? That will be one subject, sir. And second, you said the second one was?
The one was that, regarding that, one is the rehabilitation.
Yes, I noted.
From the Gupkar that the Kashmiri Pandits. Second is that there should be a separate budget to rehabilitate the Kashmiri Pandits. There should be 1/10 what Sazwal Sahab was recommending and suggesting. Third, what as a political empowerment we are talking about, that, you see most of the Kashmiri Pandits across the country within the Jammu also, their names does not exist at all there in their electoral votes. Okay, we will talk about that. At least these two as a goodwill gesture. Because I'm
also sure we are going to meet with cross-section of our people there, and I'm sure that some of them are going to be special invitees in this conference. I'm very positive about it because a huge number of let me complete, sir. A massive number has come in for support of 370 and 35A. And this will be 2 points I will put from Ibadat Khana's discussion today. That is the rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits and separate budget of 10% for the Kashmiri Pandits. This is what you're saying from the state budget.
Right. So, Shah Sahab, okay, sorry to intervene.
Kapil is also listening to it. I'm sure all others are listening. And we will find out what is the policy of the present government about the separate budget. What is the policy? And I again reiterate my answer to Sazwal Sahab. Please, sir, put this question pointedly to Prime Minister of India.
Well, I say, Shah Sahab, thank you very much. But the fact is, I have no connections with BJP. I have no connections with BJP. I don't know who I will address that to. But I could add to your third point. Which is, if you would ask the National Conference and PDP to join the Delimitation Commission and raise the issue of Kashmiri Pandit constituencies in the new delimitation document. I would request you to please consider that and include that as part of the
Well,
agenda.
I can tell you right here, I don't think that will be done.
So I think, Shahzab, if you can hear me, I wanted to ask you a question on behalf. Actually, I wanted to add, I don't think you can hear me. So, all right, I think maybe we need to move on. Shifali ji, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can. I just wanted a question for Muzaffar Shah Sahab. I know you call yourself the Gupkar team or the Gupkar gang or whatever it's called, but
No. Bad word. The gang is not a good word. The gang
sorry,
is like
what is
dacoit.
it? Okay, so Gupkar collaboration. So
No. It's a people's
alliance.
What is it called?
It's a
Sanwar group.
Okay, so
No.
It's alliance. It's alliance.
Sanwar group. I mean, what mandate does Sanwar? I mean, people are asking you, oh, can you do this? Can you give us 10%? Can you give us 20%? You yourself, I don't know what mandate you have.
That's about all. This is a people's alliance declaration, and some people from Delhi are calling it a Gupkar gang. That's these TV channels in the evening who spread venom in the country.
Okay, well, let's call it Gupkar Alliance then.
That's their job.
It's a people's alliance.
Okay, so it's a people's alliance, but because people here are asking you, Shah Sahab, can you give us 10%? Shah Sahab, can you give us budget? I mean, do you what mandate do you have? I'm not really sure what mandate you have to give us 10%.
He cannot give. He can ask for it. He can ask for it. He cannot give it.
I can very about it.
Yes, and also as far as the Prime Minister of India is concerned, you know, we will ask him at the right time. And I don't think
what have you been doing for 7 years? Why haven't you asked for 7 years?
Modi ji we have.
Modi ji has got a country to run, and you know, J&K is a minor part. We have asked him.
No, Shah Sahab, that's a continuing process. We are asking that also. It's a work in progress. I just wanted to let you know.
For 7 years, he has done nothing. He has done zilch.
Well, that is your impression, Shah Sahab. That's not the impression of the Kashmiri Pandit and the country and the world.
Has he given 50 crores? Please tell me.
No, Shah Sahab, I agree.
We don't want crores. We don't want crores. We want what we have left there. We want it back. And I think Gupkar Alliance probably can help with that.
That's a pretty good question.
Sorry, yes. I'll have to cut it out here. I just wanted to add, Asifji wants to ask a question, Asif Abdullah, but also I wanted to add to the question of, I think this was not understood correct. Dr. Kaul, what he meant, he was asking that we want a settlement, a smart city in Kashmir, right, for Kashmiri Pandits. So
no. I want to clarify. Not for Kashmiri Pandits. I want a smart city for all the sections of the people in Kashmir, as well as in Jammu, as a separate smart city there. But my question was that if there is so much of spending, we would like to stay together with the Muslims in one area rather than scattered us in 20 districts, you know? Is that something that you can help us with, so that we have the confidence to grow? So it was not exclusive for Kashmiri Pandits. That's why I just wanted to.
Okay, no, very good point. And Shah Sahab is very important because there is a rhetoric in Kashmir, which I hear from a lot of Kashmiri Muslims, and maybe you or Professor Muju Sahab or even Asif Abdullah, he can respond to this, that the rhetoric is that Kashmiri Pandits is wanting to create a settlements in Kashmir, exactly like they did in Israel for Palestine. Because whenever Kashmiri Pandits want to come back, as Mr. Dr. Kaul said, they would like to create an area where there can be industrial development, there can be schools, there can be hospitals, but they don't want to be scattered, right? So Kashmiri Muslims, I see the rhetoric on the ground, they say they see it as a settlement. They see okay, we will not allow that. If they want to come in, they should just come across the board and live in the areas they did. So Shah Sahab, I want to know your views about that. What are your views of such thing? Are you supportive of such idea?
No, I'm not. We have to live as one, as we were. Not in separate groups or separate, what we call here ghettos and all. No. We have to live all over the place like we were doing that.
Here is the problem. No, here is the problem. That this is the problem. We are not saying, This is where the issues come up that, hey, you want to go, you go back to your houses. There is nothing left there. We have temples which has been encroached upon, the private lands have been encroached upon. But the question is, what you are asking certain guarantees from government of India, but we are asking certain guarantees from you. You are not ready to give it to us, but you expect that guarantee from government of India.
Sir, that's what the idea is, that when we meet more often, we sit together, we come to Kashmir. Usko Hindi उर्दू में कज़ाए ज़मीन बरसरे ज़मीन, माने हमारी प्रॉब्लम यहाँ है, यहाँ आकर यहाँ पर बैठकर इसको हल करना पड़ेगा, कश्मीर में बैठकर हल करना पड़ेगा.
आजकल टेक्नोलॉजी है, we have made the world one place. We can solve any problems anywhere, provided we are transparent and we have the will to solve it. With due respect to you, I heard you.
We have to solve it to the best of our ability. Absolutely, sir. I am, at least personally, I am with you on this. Absolutely, we have to solve it. We have to take care of both our people, to all the people who are the stakeholders here. Absolutely, there is no ambiguity on that. It can be worked out.
But when you say no, it is not possible. When you say it is not possible, so you have overruled any negotiations, any conversations. When you came out at a judgment, no, it is not possible.
Because what we said, what you said after that, that needs to be set down here.
Just hang on. Shah, hang on. I just want to say, Dr. Kaul साहब, सबसे पहले जैसे हम कह रहे हैं हमारे मोदी साहब, और मोदी साहब का एक ही बात है, सबका साथ सबका विकास. आप खुद बाकी जितने भी प्रेसिडेंट्स के साथ खुद गए थे माननीय अमित शाह जी के पास मिलने के लिए, और जबकि हमने कहा था कि 6 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में हमें जगह दीजिए, हम रहेंगे, क्योंकि हमारे पास घर नहीं है, कोई उन्हें बेचे हैं, किसी के जल चुके हैं सब कुछ. और आपको स्पेशली आपके लिए डॉक्टर कौल साहब, आपको अमित शाह जी ने स्पेशली गिफ्ट किया कि दैट why 6 districts, why 4 districts, why not in 10 districts? Because in length and breadth of the Kashmir, everywhere is a temple. There are a lot of people who are in North Kashmir as well as in South Kashmir who are having still the orchards, who are still having their lands, who are still doing the farming. Why we are squeezing them? Just if we really trust our PM, we need to follow his words. If we really love Amit Shah, we need to follow his words. If we really love RSS, then we need to believe their words. Why we are coming up on this point of one place settlement?
Okay. Let me answer this question.
Let me to sacrifice it, sir.
Let me answer this question.
We all love Honorable Prime Minister. So please let's follow their words.
Okay, let me answer this question.
Bhaiya, you love Amit Shah. Please go ahead. Love Modi. Please go ahead. Love everybody. Love each other first.
No. We have loved right away from Pandit Nehru to Indira Gandhi as a Prime Minister. We similarly love and respect the Prime Minister of India, Modi ji. We respect Home Minister and every minister for that matter. We have respected the Chief Minister Sheikh Saab also. So let's not get into that. Now coming to the point with...
You love RSS and all, please love RSS. Please go ahead and love them.
See, this is wordsmithing. This is wordsmithing, and this is sort of
I don't think there is.
Okay, let me just answer that question of Mahaldar Saab, that we met Home Minister, we have met Honorable Prime Minister also, and Home Minister, it was a discussion. There was nothing about what happens, and this is an ongoing work in progress. We continue to work with them where there are certain things that the people of Kashmir has to speak. There are certain things that government of India has to do. So we need to take all the responsibilities together. Now the question is whether we go to one place or to different space. That is how a consensus mechanism was evolved within the community. It's an online petition. Even Dr. Mahaldar will, Mr. Mahaldar will can see that, where all organizations have vetted it, and that they say that we are better off in one place settlement with Muslims, so that our confidence gets built up and our way of life, we are able to follow the way of life, and especially in the backdrop that we are under imminent threat of extinction, given that we have been away from our roots for so many years. So that was the point clarification I wanted to make.
Hey, Dr. Kaul Sahab. Dr. Kaul.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Muzaffar.
What do you mean by one place settlement? Can you please clarify it?
No.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, one place settlement means yes, one place settlement.
Homeland.
No. You please try to understand.
Yes,
One place settlement means we have 10 districts. Now, given what has happened to it, now there has to be a confidence building measure within the community, initiated for the community, so that they get the confidence to go and practice their way of life. Now, it is but natural. Let me complete, Muju sir. It is but natural when you are amongst your people, the practicing of way of life is more comfortable, which may not happen also, which may not happen that way. There might be obstacles because of that. I am not saying that it is exclusively for Kashmiri pandits. I am saying that it is for all the sections.
I get it. I get it.
Industrialization, schooling, where we have strength.
Amount of almost what way before 90, you had a Mohalla Karanagar was dominated, Rana was working. So villages also had Anantnag was. So say as it was there. Now since there are no houses today, so government has come up with some sort of townships or colonies for Kashmiri Pandits in different districts.
Right.
There.
Yes, that's what it is. Just
you can't have it exclusively for Kashmiri Pandits.
No, I never use that word exclusively, that you are putting words in my mouth. I never said that. That's why I clarified Tasawwur Sahib when he used that Kashmiri Pandits for. I interjected it and clarified that.
I also want to know this clear for that.
But Muju sir, we also want to, let me be very, there are a large section of people who are asking for a homeland, secure homeland.
Yes.
But that under what has happened with the successive governments and with the successive centuries, I cannot ridicule them. Their demands are also very genuine. They whatever theoretically it may not happen, whatever there are, but their demands are very genuine, and we cannot ridicule that.
No, why not ridicule that? No, I'm telling only practicality of the thing, of what is practicable in the modern society. You can't have an actual area for some community. You have to be together. Only that social binding has to be there, interaction has to be there, as we were before 90. And obviously, under present circumstances, the way Kashmir is today facing after 370 and all those things there, I don't think there is a time for us to think of going back immediately. Because Kashmir is already in turmoil. We don't know what is going to happen in the next 2 years or 3 years. And then we can't think of going back. No, we try to work for our going back. That part is there definitely.
I think, sorry, we're running out of time. Our allow is 3 hours. We were supposed to keep it 90 minutes. Again, it's a very passionate discussion. Thank you, guys. And thank you for...
30. I just wanted 30 seconds.
Sorry, we got to wrap it up. Sorry, Madhas, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We got to wrap it up. Sorry, I think it has been a wonderful participation. I know Mr. Madhav wants to make it a point. It's just not possible. 3 hours, a lot of people have to go.
30 seconds, I just 30 seconds, please.
Okay, go ahead,
I just
Mahadas.
want to say, Dr. Kaul Sahab, you are saying that you want to build up a confidence. Past 10 years, 6,000 Kashmiri Pandit employees are working in 8 to 10 districts of the Kashmir. What else? How much confidence we want to do? More, another 1,500 boys are going back to Kashmir and to work in the 10 different districts of the Kashmir. What we are talking about, sir, please.
Okay, last counter and I'm done. Just 30 seconds. You know, our rehabilitation has to be delinked from employment. Our rehabilitation process has to be delinked from packages. Our rehabilitation process has to be delinked from all these materialistic things. It's the question of civilization. It's the question of confidence. It is a question of practicing your way of life. Thank you so much.
Correct. I agree with Dr. Kaul.
Good point.
Thank you. I think Mr. Asif Abdullah, he's been on asking a question. I'd like to give him an opportunity to speak.
Before the governments, you have to sit down with the people.
No question, no, Tasawwur bhai.
Okay.
I think we are done with a lot of discussion.
Okay, I know. Thank you. I mean, we can continue. I know for sure we can continue for another 2 hours, but being respectful, I think a lot of members already dropped. So let's call it.
Tasawwur Saab, next time the timing has to be reversed. You have to be there when it is night time, and we have to be here when it is.
I don't mind. Actually, I'm a night person. So for me, my weekend is gone.
बेसिकली हमने ये रिक्वेस्ट की थी कि आप वहाँ दिन में करो, हम यहाँ रात में ज्वाइन करेंगे क्योंकि हमें मॉर्निंग में प्रॉब्लम होती थी.
No, we will do it the next one we do in the morning for sure. I know, and appreciate.
Everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you all.
We'll post these recordings in on our session next time. Thank you, and I'll share them with the members. Thank you again.
Thank you everybody. Thank you Tasawwur sir.
Thank you.
Jeevan Saab, namaskar. Jeevan Saab.
Hello.
Namaskar, Janab. Thank you very much.
Great to see you again.
I got your mail.